Chapter 28:31. However, Miao Yi's emotions were unstable. Before Miao Ji could stop her, she had already rushed into the courtyard that was blocked by the vines. Miao Yi's feet had already sensed danger when she had just stepped into the vines. She had an innate sensitivity towards goo worms. She quickly retracted her feet and took out a powder that could restrain goo worms from the brocade bag at her waist to counterattack. Miao Yi's reaction was indeed very fast. However, she was impulsive, and half of her feet had already stepped into the vines. Even if she counterattacked, on the vines there were several black goo worms that were about the thickness of a finger, and they directly wrapped around Miao Yi's feet. Miao Yi's face was slightly pale, and she quickly sprinkled the powder on her feet. Suddenly, a hand stretched out and stopped her hand that was sprinkling the powder. Then, she was brought into a warm embrace. You can't use the anti-goo powder. These are blood-sucking goo worms that move in group. If you use the anti-goo powder to hurt one of them, thousands of blood-sucking goo worms will take revenge for you. The woman's gentle voice sounded beside her ears. Miao Yi's delicate body suddenly froze. She stood still in a daze. In her mind, a scene from a long time ago actually appeared. At that time, Miao Ji also held the little girl in her arms like this. Miao Ji used her unique gentle tone, patiently and seriously explaining the knowledge of goo worms that she did not understand. This scene, it had been a long time since she had felt it. Ugh! A muffled groan startled Miao Yi back to her senses. Miao Ji used all her strength to protect her in her arms. She directly used her hands to block the blood-sucking goo worms that climbed up for her. A few soft black goo worms instantly attached themselves to Miao Ji's fair arms. Almost in an instant, Miao Ji's hands quickly dried up. And Miao Yi's eyes widened and she cried out in panic, trying to help her get rid of those blood-sucking goo worms. Miao Ji's hands firmly held her in place. Miao Yi curled up in her arms, unable to move at all. I'm fine. Miao Ji's voice was very soft, and there was a hint of sobbing. Don't be afraid, it's good that you're fine. As she spoke, the corners of her mouth lifted into a smile. She didn't seem to feel that she had been possessed by the blood-sucking goo. Her withered arm used the hand that was holding Miao Yi and pulled Miao Yi behind her. Stand there and don't move, Miao Ji said softly. When she was sure that Miao Yi was standing in a place that she thought was safe. Only then did Miao Ji start to deal with the blood-sucking goo. A moment later, the blood-sucking goo were sealed back into the Poison Goo Institute. Miao Ji's face was extremely pale. She let out a sigh of relief. The feeling of losing too much blood rushed to his head. The dizziness in front of her caused her body to sway. Be careful. A pair of soft little hands caught her in time. Miao Ji was exhausted, but she forced herself to open her eyes. He glanced sideways and looked at the young girl beside him, whose eyes were filled with worry. His eyes were filled with tenderness. Can you call me one more time? Miao Ji's voice was clearly choked with emotion. His eyes, which were filled with fatigue and lost their luster from time to time, were red-rimmed. Miao Yi felt her heart tighten. Her heart seemed to be fiercely strangled by something. Her nose also felt sour. Miao Yi moved her lips, but she couldn't say anything. After waiting quietly for a while, Miao Ji didn't hear Miao Yi call out the name that she had waited for so many years. Chapter 28:32. The corners of her lips curled into a reluctant arc as she spoke in a hoarse voice. No matter. It's all right if you don't want to. And suddenly, Miao Yi's voice interrupted Miao Ji's words. Miao Ji was stunned as tears rolled down from her eyes without any warning. She choked with sobs as her teary eyes looked at Miao Yi without blinking. You're forgiving me. Why did you do that? Miao Yi pursed her lips tightly as her eyes stared at Miao Ji's obviously withered hand. Do you think that I will forgive you just like this? Miao Ji's voice choked as her throat tightened. Miao Yi raised her hand and supported her as they walked towards Yi Qing Luo and Di Mo Xian's room, which was the furthest away from the guest room. As they walked, the girl's icy cold voice was heard. I call you aunt because you are indeed my aunt. Even if I hate you, this is a fact that cannot be changed. Miao Ji's eyes turned redder as she opened her mouth to explain, but she didn't know how to explain. The two of them remained silent as they entered the room. Miao Yi helped Miao Ji to the seat as she held up her hand and checked it carefully. Rearing venomous worms in your own courtyard, and you didn't prepare any antidote? My hand is fine. Miao Ji shook her head as she lowered her eyes to look at her withered hand, which was placed on the table. It'll be fine in a few days. Miao Yi pursed her lips as she didn't say another word. It was another silent atmosphere as it lingered between the two of them. Miao Ji wanted to open her mouth to break the silence several times. But facing Miao Yi's expressionless face, all her courage was extinguished at this moment. Obviously, she wanted to sit together with Miao Yi and clarify all the misunderstandings in the past. Now this opportunity was right in front of her eyes. But she couldn't say a single word. This silence made Miao Ji's heart feel even more uncomfortable. Finally, Miao Ji couldn't take it anymore. Did you hear what I said to Miss Yi? Amen, Miao Yi replied calmly. The sacred maiden selection ceremony had ended and she wanted to be alone for a while. But when she saw Yi Qing Luo's Chi-Chi, that furry little ball, it was obviously here to comfort her. She thought about it and decided to look for Yi Qing Luo, to tell her about her relationship with Miao Ji. But he had not expected Miao Ji to take the initiative to look for Yi Qing Luo. She brought Chi-Chi and followed behind Yi Qing Luo and the others, all the way to Sacred Maiden's courtyard. He also heard all of Miao Ji's memories clearly. Then, Miao Ji's voice was hoarse. She paused and asked carefully, "So, what do you think?" Miao Yi was silent for a moment. After a while, he raised his head. Miao Yi's gaze was calm as she stared at Miao Ji. There was no expression on her face. "Aunt, although you didn't kill Mother with your own hands, it doesn't change the fact that you were an accomplice in her death." Miao Ji's throat tightened again, and she couldn't say anything else. That was right. No matter how righteous her reason for handing Miao Yuan over was, it couldn't change the fact that she had personally sent her sister to hell. "I don't blame you," Miao Yi continued, "but I can't forgive you, and I can't forgive myself." As she said that, her eyelids drooped. If it wasn't for me, Mother wouldn't have died. Even though she was only 7 years old. But all the memories had long been engraved in her mind. Chapter 28:33. Her mother was seriously injured because she was protecting her. In order to protect her, her mother begged her aunt to use her own life to exchange for her safety for the next few years. Although her aunt was her helper. But the real culprit was her. She was unable to forgive her aunt. And even more unable to forgive herself. You can't think in this way." Miao Ji stuttered as she tried to persuade her. "Sister's death is not your fault, it's all my. I sent sister to Madame Miao's hands, you're right not to forgive me." Feeling Miao Ji's anxiety and worry, Miao Yi slowly shook her head. She understood Miao Ji's meaning. Miao Ji didn't wish for her to go against herself because of this matter. She would rather she blame her. Rather than let her blame herself. Miao Yi closed her eyes, hiding the sadness in her eyes as she gave a low laugh. "Don't worry, Mother used her life to exchange for a future. I will not let Mother die in vain." As she said that, she slowly raised her eyes, which had regained its calm. "I will complete Mother's dying wish, to take revenge for Mother, to become the Miao tribe's saintess." Miao Ji's lips squirmed a few times. Miao Yi had already interrupted her words. "Earlier in the house, I heard it too. Is it true that you have a way to detoxify the Overlord's poison?" Miao Ji swallowed the words that were in her mouth. "Qing Luo is my benefactor and the Overlord is the person whom Qing Luo cares about the most. If you have a way, before you ascend, can you tell me about it?" Miao Yi continued. Miao Ji's lips trembled again and after some time, she spat out a word, "All right." Miao Yi looked at her injured hand. "After the blood-sucking worm's poison is detoxified, then detoxify the Overlord. Seeing that Miao Yi had placed all her thoughts on helping Dmo Xian detoxify the worm, in order to stay in Nirvana realm for the last few days, to get along well with Miao Yi, Miao Ji also shifted all her thoughts to the goo poison. What kind of worm was the Overlord in? What kind of person could plant a worm on the Overlord? Till now, she still didn't know what worm was in the Overlord. Centrifugal worm and love worm. Miao Yi said word by word, the target is Qing Luo. Miao Ji's expression froze. I thought His Majesty was poisoned by the heart separation spell, but there was also the love spell? How can anyone from the Miao tribe use these two forbidden goo techniques? Miao Rongrong and Miao Yixiong worked together. Miao Yi didn't explain the situation in detail. These two types of venomous worms are originally mutually restraining, and now both of them are in the Overlord's body. Moreover, the target is Qing Luo. Love venomous worm makes the Overlord obedient to Qing Luo, whereas venomous worm makes the Overlord forget everything about Qing Luo. She paused for a moment. If this goes on for a long time, even the Overlord's body will not be able to take it. Miao Ji nodded solemnly. In fact, when Miao Ji detected the centrifugal worm in Dmo Xian's body, she was already astonished. An emperor who was poisoned by the centrifugal goo. To think that he could still be in such sweet love with Yi Qing Luo. It showed how deep the Overlord's feelings for Yi Qing Luo were. Two kinds of venomous worms together, and the target is the same person. This kind of worm is even more troublesome to detoxify. Miao Ji frowned. Let them rest in the Miao tribe for a few days. These few days, I'll go to the Saint Maiden Pavilion to research on a safer method. Miao Yi remained silent for a moment. Tomorrow, after the Sacred Maiden ceremony, I'll accompany you. After tomorrow, she would be the Miao tribe's Sacred Maiden. She also had the right to enter the Saint Maiden Pavilion. Chapter 28-34. In the other room, the entire room was filled with the scent of spring. The shadow of the bed fluttered as it shimmered. The silver robe and red shirt were intertwined. The young lady's cheeks were flushed red and her half-opened eyes were bewitching. The man on top of her was gently teasing the flame. Yi Qing Luo's mind was in a mess, but her consciousness was still awake. She tried to speak several times as her hands pushed against the man's chest. But before she could say a word, everything was sealed by a scorching aura that covered the sky and covered the earth. No, I can't. Between her murmurs, Yi Qing Luo panted heavily as she spat out two fragmented words. The man who was still kissing lifted his head. That handsome, godlike face was quietly reflected in her eyes. The man's peach blossom eyes were as calm as water without any ripples. He looked as though he wasn't tainted with the slightest bit of confusion. But, if one looked closely, she could tell. In the depths of the man's tranquil eyes, there was a flickering flame. The corners of his lips were filled with a hint of mischievous air. Drops of sweat rolled down from his taut muscles. This was obviously the performance of the cloud power of emotions. No way. Dmo Xian opened his mouth with a magnetic and seductive tone. Looks like I haven't worked hard enough? Teasing to such an extent. The young lady was still saying no way? Dmo Xian could tell. This was a rejection, not a woman's irony in bed, but a real sense of no way. No way? This was the first woman who rejected him? No, no. Yi Qing Luo tried her best to stay awake as she trembled weakly. She panted heavily, not allowing herself to be bewitched by his beauty. This is the Sacred Maiden's courtyard, they will be back any time, no way. This is not an excuse. Dmo Xian supported himself with one hand as the other hand floated onto the young lady's blushing face. His fingertips slowly brushed past her half-opened misty eyes. His thin lips curled into a demonic cold arc. Your moans earlier were very enchanting, they are all tactful people. Such a simple sentence made Yi Qing Luo's face burn even more. She bit her lips in embarrassment, avoiding Dmo Xian's deliberate teasing. Although the beauty was right in front of her, she also wanted to continue to the last step. But she did not forget. Diamo Xian's current condition could not continue. In Diamo Xian's body, there was still the existence of the centrifugal force goo. If they were just a little more intimate, the centrifugal goo would make Diamo Xian leave her. If he did such a thing, the centrifugal force goo would probably clamor even more fiercely. The last person to suffer was Diamo Xian. Now the room was lit with the tranquilizer incense, which stabilized the goo worms in Diamo Xian's body. But Yi Qing Luo wasn't sure if Ngongxiang would be able to suppress the corrosion of the centrifugal force goo if this carried on. She could not risk Diamo Xian's health. Xian! Yi Qing Luo was thinking about what excuse to use to stop the man who had already gone crazy. However, just as he called out the name, the warmth and scorching heat covering his body abruptly withdrew. The man had already gotten off the bed and was standing by the side. Yi Qing Luo was stunned. She wanted to get up, but her whole body was limp without any strength. She could only turn her head to look at Diamo Xian. The man's slender fingers lightly touched her body. His slightly messy robe instantly tidied up. His face regained its usual indifference, and when his eyes looked towards Yi Qing Luo, there wasn't a single bit of emotion. Extremely cold. Chapter 28:35. Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly widened. An ice-cold chill spread through his limbs and spread throughout his body. Her face turned pale. What do you mean? Diamo Xian's eyes drooped as he squinted his long peach blossom eyes. His handsome face was icy cold. This lord has no interest in sleeping with you. Yi Qing Luo's delicate body on the bed trembled slightly. Her 5 fingers clenched the quilt under her tightly. Her eyelashes trembled as she stared fixedly at Diamo Xian's eyes, with some obscure flickering. The man stood by the bed. Tall and slender, dressed neatly. She looked very noble and graceful. She, on the other hand, was lying on the bed with her clothes half taken off. The sharp contrast made Yi Qing Luo's face turn paler. Her pink lips tightened, and when she spoke again, her voice sounded bitter. Diamo Xian, you know very well that it's not that I'm unwilling. Diamo Xian sneered without saying a word. The curvature of his lips was like a smile, yet not a smile, which was extremely terrifying. That neither yin nor yang look made Yi Qing Luo's anger gushed out for no reason. She clearly knew that Diamo Xian was like this because of the centrifugal worm. But, right now, she was obviously concerned about Diamo Xian's health. It was for Diamo Xian's sake that she rejected such intimacy time and time again. On the contrary, he even took advantage of her and gave her a cold shoulder. She endured Diamo Xian forgetting her. Endured Diamo Xian's indifference. Endured Diamo Xian flirting with her without any feelings. She was full of grievances. Who would understand? Perhaps she was really a little princess who was spoiled rotten by Diamo Xian. Assassin, after all, couldn't endure the flood of grievances. Her weak body, which was teased by the man, had also recovered its strength. She abruptly sat up on the bed with a sliver of grievance in her eyes. She tugged at her robes tightly as she said through gritted teeth, "Do you still want to say that if I don't want to sleep with you, you'll go find another woman who's willing to sleep with you?" The young lady's angry words made Diamo Xian's brows suddenly crease tightly. Looking at the young lady's aggrieved face, her pair of charming eyes seemed to be rippling with layers of ripples, as if she was about to cry from grievance. Diamo Xian's heart inexplicably twitched. But very quickly, his expression returned to that of desperation. His face didn't reveal any other emotions. He smiled calmly and indifferently, yes. Just one word and Yi Qing Luo was about to explode from anger. Was it that interesting to bully her? She lifted her leg and kicked the side of the bed. Go, go, go. Go, I won't stop you. Go now. That leg directly kicked onto Diamo Xian's body. Diamo Xian took 2 steps back from the kick. Then, he looked down and stared at the small foot that was still kicking his waist. The owner of that foot was obviously still throwing a tantrum. After the first kick, she was completely unappeased and stuck close to Dmo Xian, wanting to kick again. Dmo Xian frowned as he gripped her leg tightly. Yiqing Luo gritted her teeth and swung hard. Let me go! Didn't you not want to sleep with me? Aren't you not interested in me anymore? Why are you still grabbing my leg? Dmo Xian's eyes darkened as he violently shook off her leg. Following that, he turned around and left the room. Hearing the room door being opened, Yiqing Luo sat by the bed and stood up, wanting to stop him. But thinking of Dmo Xian's extremely cold attitude, her heart felt angry, vexed and wronged. She simply sat on the side of the bed and hugged her own legs, as though he was the only one who had a temper. She had always thought that she was Dmo Xian who was pampered like a princess. She was poisoned by the centrifugal worm and wanted to become the master? Chapter 28:36. However, after 6 hours had passed, Yiqing Tong's expression changed. Yiqing Luo's grievance was gradually replaced by worry. After Dmo Xian walked out of the room, Yiqing Luo curled up on the bed alone as she kept on grumbling about Dmo Xian. The more she complained, the more wronged she felt. The more aggrieved she felt, the more Yiqing Luo wanted to let Dmo Xian know that she wasn't really a woman who had to pester him and couldn't leave him. It was time to let Dmo Xian have a taste of being treated coldly. Thinking in this way, Yiqing Luo didn't chase after him or search for him. Miao Ji and Miao Yi knocked on the door. Miao Ji's voice was slightly awkward as she asked cautiously, "Miss Yi, is it convenient for us to come in?" "What's inconvenient about it?" Yiqing Luo climbed down from the bed. Miao Ji and Miao Yi pushed the door and walked in, only to discover that Yiqing Luo was the only one left in the room, and Yiqing Luo's expression was extremely gloomy. Miao Ji looked around and asked, "Where is His Majesty?" "We quarreled and he ran away." Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and replied coldly, "Ran away?" Miao Ji's expression changed. Why would they quarrel? In the Saintess courtyard, every garden was filled with goo worms. The Overlord already has goo worms in his body. If he provokes other goo worms, it will be very dangerous. Miao Ji's words made Yiqing Luo's eyes flash slightly as her body instinctively tensed up. "Wait for me here with Yi. I'll go look for a venerable sovereign." Miao Ji made a prompt decision. Yiqing Luo hurriedly followed up, "Me too. In this courtyard, besides me, all of you are in danger." Miao Ji stopped him. "I don't want to have to look for you everywhere before I find sovereign." Yiqing Luo's footsteps halted as her face was filled with a complicated expression. After a while, she lowered her eyes and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you. Please, help me find Xian." Regarding the Miao Gu, she was in a state where she only had a smattering of knowledge. Not to mention whether she could protect herself in the face of those goo worms. He couldn't increase Miao Ji's burden. She could only stay here and wait for news. He watched Miao Ji leave. Yiqing Luo sat silently on the seat by the side. She hung her head and clenched her fist. "Weren't you guys fine just now? Why did it suddenly?" Miao Yi was afraid that Yiqing Luo would be overly worried and let her imagination run wild. So after thinking for a moment, she opened her mouth to ask. She and Miao Ji were outside the door and heard Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian's intimate voices. Could it be an auditory hallucination? Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened even more, her voice was very hoarse. In his eyes, I can't feel his feelings for me, my heart is very flustered. She raised her head, and her charming eyes were covered with a layer of clear and moist mist. She pursed her lips tightly, as if she was holding back something. I clearly know that he was poisoned by the heart separation goo, and he was poisoned because of me, but I still feel wronged. She clenched her fists tightly. Tell me, am I very selfish? So selfish that I only want him to treat me well, but I don't want to see him acting like he doesn't care about anything. This is not selfishness. Miao Yi walked up to her, reached out her hand and gently patted her on the shoulder. Because you love Dizun, and because you love him, You want his response, don't you? Chapter 28:37. As Miaoyi said that, she sat down beside Yi Qing Luo. He held Yi Qing Luo's hand and clasped it in his palm. Qing Luo, my aunt said she has the confidence to find a way to cure the Overlord's dual venomous worm. However, because it was a poison that countered each other, his aunt wanted to find a safer method. After the inheritance of King of Venomous Worms ends tomorrow, I will enter the Saint Pavilion and study it with my aunt. She comforted him in a gentle voice, so, just wait for us for a few days. Before my aunt ascends to the upper realm, we will definitely be able to find a way to cure the venomous venom for the sovereign. Hearing this sentence, Yi Qing Luo's gaze had some changes. She raised her eyes and looked at Miaoyi. Can the poison in Ah Xian's body really be completely removed? Yes. Miaoyi nodded with certainty. Although Aunt has only been the Miao tribe's holy maiden for 4 years, she still reads the books in the Holy Maiden Pavilion every day. Ordinary people need 50 years to become the Miao tribe's holy maiden before they can ascend to the upper realm, but I only used a short 4 years to ascend. You should believe in my strength. I believe you. Yi Qing Luo's eyes finally lit up. The next morning, Miaoji walked into the room with a tired face. Yi Qing Luo hadn't slept the entire night, and when she saw that Miaoji had returned, her gaze went past her, but she didn't see that familiar figure whom she had been pining for. Miaoji sighed softly. I've found the Overlord. He's fine, but... She paused and didn't finish her sentence. Yi Qing Luo's expression turned indifferent. It's just that he doesn't want to see me, right? Miaoji didn't answer, which was a tacit admission. Yi Qing Luo sat dejectedly by the side, her little fists clenched tightly as she angrily smashed it on the wooden table. Haven't you already been inflicted with the centrifugal venom and turned into that noble and elegant, high and mighty Overlord? Still acting like a child throwing a tantrum with me, isn't he childish? Miaoji and Miaoyi looked at each other. It's fine if I don't want to see you. After he's cured, I'll see how he'll kneel on the washboard and beg for my forgiveness. Yi Qing Luo gritted her teeth as she spoke, although his mouth was stubborn. In actual fact, Yi Qing Luo's heart was finally at ease. It was not important whether Dmo Xian was willing to come back to see her. The most important thing was to ensure Dmo Xian's safety. It could be seen from Miao Ji's expression. Dmo Xian should be in a safe place now. I've told the Overlord about the dangers in the Saint Lady's courtyard. Miao Ji massaged her aching forehead with her slender fingers and continued, Don't worry too much. The Overlord is actually the safest in the Holy Maiden's courtyard. At least, he wouldn't try his best to conceal the fact that Dmo Xian was afflicted with a venomous worm. He intends to stay in the Sacred Maiden's courtyard? Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips as she understood the meaning behind Miao Ji's words. Miao Ji put down her hand and glanced sideways at the young girl sitting beside her. I can see that even though His Majesty has been poisoned by the centrifugal parasite and should have been swallowed by the parasite, he still cares about you and values you. Miao Yi handed a cup of hot tea to Miao Ji and continued, I've read Gu books for many years, but I've never heard of anyone who was poisoned by the heart separation. Gu would be like Lord Dizun, paying so much attention and care to the person he should be keeping his heart from. Chapter 28:38. I know he won't leave me behind. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. No matter if I'm in his memories, he won't leave me behind. She was extremely certain of this. Towards the relationship between her and Dmo Xian, she had always been incomparably confident. I'm just worried. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and met Miao Ji's gaze. His feelings for me are too deep, so he will definitely have to contend against the centrifugal worm in his body. I'm afraid he will fail. According to the past, Dmo Xian was stimulated by the worm and fell into a coma. He would change the mode immediately after he woke up. But this time, Dmo Xian was stimulated by the worm web, but his consciousness was still eroded by the centrifugal worm. This made Yi Qing Luo had no choice but to think and worry. Dmo Xian loved her. Even his soul loved her. There was no doubt about this. But now, apparently, the time for the centrifugal worm to move was getting longer and longer. If this went on for a long time, Dmo Xian's consciousness might really be eroded by the centrifugal worm. By then, Dmo Xian would really leave her heart. But, the love between the two of them, there was a possibility that it would cause Dmo Xian to be unable to take action, and then suffer the torture of the worm. What she didn't want the most was to see this happen. Go take part in the King of Venomous Worms' inheritance ceremony. After you become the Sacred Maiden, come look for me at the Sacred Maiden Pavilion. Miao Ji put down the teacup in her hands and stood up. I'll go to the Sacred Maiden Pavilion to find the books on this. Aunt. Miao Yi frowned, obviously not agreeing to her arrangement. Yi Qing Luo also stood up. In order to help me find Ah Xian, you didn't sleep for the whole night, go rest first. It's all right, my body, I know. Miao Ji's brows were filled with a gentle smile. Her eyes were gentle as she looked at Miao Yi's direction, as though she was overjoyed by Miao Yi's worry for her. The exhaustion in her eyes was also swept away in an instant. Yi Qing Luo and Miao Yi followed behind Miao Ji as they walked out of the Sacred Maiden courtyard. Outside the courtyard, there were several elderly dressed in Miao elders' attire. Standing at the forefront were the first elder and the second elder. When they saw the three of them, they immediately welcomed them with smiles. Saintess, Lady Miao, Lady Yi, you're finally out. Miao Ji frowned slightly. Why are you waiting outside the Saintess yard so early? Did something happen? Great Elder Miao looked past Miao Ji and at Miao Yi, who was behind her. Then, he retracted his gaze and said, Your Highness, we're about to enter the land of the Gu King to carry out the inheritance ceremony of the Gu King. But the Gu King, Miao Ji understood. These elders must be worried. Later, the Miao tribesmen and guests would be waiting outside the territory of the King of Venomous Worms. But the King of Venomous Worms was no longer in the King of Venomous Worms land. Yes, it was not only the Miao people who were disorganized. The other guests would probably laugh at the Miao people. They could not afford to take the risk. Miao Ji also realized this problem. She glanced sideways at the girl behind her. Miao Yi smiled. Before the ceremony begins, the Gu King will return to the land of the Gu King. Great Elder Miao's expression froze. Chapter 2839. Former clan leader? Former eldest young miss? Miao Yi muttered these two terms softly, as her face revealed a smile which didn't look like a smile. Fifth Elder Miao's face turned pale, as though he was vexed at himself for spilling the beans. But Fifth Elder Miao quickly adjusted his expression, as he continued speaking in a righteous manner. Miao Yi, this elder only wants to know, do you know where the ancient Gu King is? Miao Yi didn't reply, but only looked at him quietly, as she gave a light smile. Yi Qing Luo walked up, as she placed one hand on Miao Yi's shoulder, as a similarly treacherous sneer surfaced on her gorgeous face. Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong had schemed to frame me and the Overlord, so aren't they already imprisoned in Qinhua Sect's underground prison by Sect Master Yin? No one is allowed to visit them. Her voice was very gentle, with a tinge of a young lady's unique sweetness. Like pearls falling onto a plate, it was extremely pleasing to the ears. But every single word that she said was like a bolt of thunder, exploding heavily in the few elders' hearts. They hadn't even had the time to digest this bolt of thunder, the shock and the emptiness in their hearts. What followed was a powerful aura that covered the sky and the earth, pressing down on them. I wonder how did the various elders see Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong? Yi Qing Luo's tone suddenly turned gloomy. Fifth Elder Miao instantly felt a chill down his spine, as his forehead started to sweat profusely under this powerful pressure. Second Elder Miao was the first to react, as he immediately gave a dry laugh, trying to break this awkward atmosphere. Miss Yi has misunderstood what Old Five said is. Before. Right, that was before. Grand Elder Meow continued, it's not that we believe the previous clan leader's words, but, to confirm, in case something goes wrong at such an important occasion later, losing the Meow tribe's face. The two elders laughed dryly as they tugged Fifth Elder Meow's arm, pulling him back. However, Yiqing Luo and Meow Yi totally didn't follow along with what they said. Instead, a cold smile hung on their lips, as a "do you think the both of us are fools" expression. The smiles on the faces of the elders could no longer be maintained. Great Elder Meow glanced at Meow Ji, who was standing at the side and had not said a word since the beginning. With a gentle smile, he said, "We're about to head to the land of the king of venomous worms. Lady Meow, you should know what this means to the Meow tribe." This time, Meow Yi spoke. However, the words that came out of his mouth caused the expressions of the elders to darken. She sneered. "To be honest, the Meow tribe has no special meaning to me. The reason why I am here and become the candidate for the Holy Maiden is not because I am interested in this position or the Meow tribe, but this is my mother's dying wish." These elders also knew about the grudge from back then. At this moment, their faces were dark and gloomy, and they could not say a word. Meow Yi's rude and arrogant attitude instantly ignited Fifth Elder Meow's emotions. "What are you saying? Are you not from the Meow tribe? Don't tell me that the blood flowing in your body is not the blood of the Meow people?" Chapter 2840. He sneered incessantly, boiling with hot blood that no one could stop. "Ex-eldest Missy is right. People like you do not even have the Meow tribe in your heart." Old 5. What are you doing? Fourth Elder Meow quickly grabbed Fifth Elder Meow. The other elders' faces darkened, but they did not stop him. Obviously, they agreed with Fifth Elder Meow's words. Meow Yi's face gradually turned cold. Fifth Elder Meow seemed to be getting more and more excited as he continued to roar. "In my opinion, you don't even know the whereabouts of the king of venomous worms. You just want to destroy the Meow tribe in front of all the guests and tribesmen." He roared the last sentence. Fifth Elder Meow was finally feeling better. His face was full of disdain and mockery towards Meow Yi. His gaze towards Meow Yi was also full of hatred. "That's enough, Old 5. Grand Elder Meow, who had been silent for a long time, called out to stop Fifth Elder Meow. He stopped Fifth Elder Meow and let out a long sigh. "Missy Meow, don't blame Old 5. He is straightforward and never considers the consequences of his words. But what he said is not without reason." He paused and looked at Meow Ji. "I know that the Holy Virgin and Missy Meow have a close relationship. Why don't you say something fair? To maintain the dignity of the Meow tribe and stabilize the hearts of the tribesmen, our request is not too much, right?" Meow Ji had been the Holy Virgin for the past 4 years. She had been working with Grand Elder Meow to maintain the prosperity of the Meow tribe. Back then, it was Grand Elder Meow who firmly believed that Meow Yi was a direct descendant under the protection of the king of venomous worms and had been taking good care of her. Over the past 4 years, the two of them could definitely be considered friends. Grand Elder Meow understood Meow Ji's character. Meow Ji also understood that everything Grand Elder Meow did was for the betterment of the Meow tribe. If it had been anyone else, Grand Elder Meow's choice was indeed made for the sake of the Meow tribe. It was not too much, but the target of their questioning. She was the niece that she had found after much difficulty. How could she not protect her? In particular, Elder Meow Wu kept using the words of the former young miss to talk about this matter. Was she purposely trying to disgust her? Meow Ji did not agree with Great Elder Meow's opinion for the sake of the Meow tribe's reputation, as Great Elder Meow expected. Instead, he sneered and looked straight at Fifth Elder Meow. "Is your request not too much?" She scoffed lightly. Her eyes were covered with a layer of chilliness. Fifth Elder Meow actually knows that he is from the Meow tribe at this moment, and that the blood of the Meow tribe flows in her body? Why didn't you know about it before this? Fifth Elder Meow opened his mouth to retort. However, fourth Elder Meow firmly held him down. This was the holy maiden of the Meow tribe. If the fifth brother dared to argue with the saintess, even if Great Elder Meow were to step forward, he would not be able to plead for old fifth. Miao Ji sneered as she looked at fifth Elder Meow's suppressed rage. Her smile became even more sarcastic. As for why did he appear during the saintess selection ceremony? Don't tell me you don't know the reason? Fifth Elder Meow's face darkened. The other elders lowered their eyes, not daring to look at Miao Ji's face. When Miao Yixiong was still in power. When Miao Rongrong was still Missy Miao. Miao Yi's existence was their humiliation. Miao Yi left the Miao tribe because Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong forced her to. Now she came back because. Chapter 2841. Miao Ji's words made Grand Elder Miao speechless. He sized up Miao Ji and Miao Yi. This pair of family members who had been separated for many years had finally reunited. From Miao Ji's point of view, it was impossible for her to be like before, where everything was for the benefit of the Miao tribe. Furthermore, based on his understanding of Miao Ji, for Miao Ji to put down her identity as the Holy Maiden and say such things, it was obvious that she was angry. Great Elder Miao calmed his restless heart. At the same time, he was observing the current situation. In his mind, he was quickly thinking of a way to deal with it. He would stand at the entrance of the saintess courtyard, waiting for Miao Yi. He was just worried that Miao Rongrong's words would come true. The more Miao Yi didn't want him to see the Gu King before the ceremony began, the more Miao Yi wouldn't let him. Grand Elder Miao, who had been brainwashed by Miao Rongrong, was eager to protect the reputation of the Miao tribe. But the more he suspected that Miao Yi and the King of Venomous Worms had nothing to do with each other. If the King of Venomous Worms was not with Miao Yi, then the inheritance ceremony of the King of Venomous Worms would not be able to proceed as planned, not to mention the Miao tribe's face was completely swept away. Once the other guests and clansmen knew that the Miao tribe's most treasured ancient Gu King had disappeared, what kind of devious thoughts did he have? If the ancient Gu King fell into the hands of someone with ulterior motives, the Miao tribe would definitely be affected. The more Grand Elder Miao thought about it, the more nervous he felt. He was even more determined to not leave until he saw the Gu King with his own eyes. Whereas Yiqing Luo, who was releasing her powerful might by the side, maintained that faintly discernible sneer on her face. A pair of charming eyes stared straight at the few of them. It made their hair stand on end. Great Elder Miao wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. In his heart, he felt a little resentful towards Fifth Elder Miao. Knowing that Yiqing Luo, Miao Rongrong and the others had a deep grudge. And he had to mention Miao Rongrong in front of Yiqing Luo. Wasn't this forcing Yiqing Luo to interfere in this matter? Great Elder Miao looked at Miao Ji's gloomy face again. After some hesitation, he decided to start with Miao Ji. Before he could say anything, Grand Elder Miao saw the girl with a calm expression on her face slowly walk past Miao Ji and toward Fifth Elder Miao. It was Miao Yi. The other elders were stunned by Miao Yi's sudden action. Fifth Elder Miao's livid and furious face also revealed a panicked expression. You. What do you want to do? Miao Yi's steps were slow. When he was 3 steps away from Fifth Elder Miao, he stopped. There was a smile on her face, and there was a smile in her eyes as well. However, his laughter was filled with contempt, as if he was challenging Fifth Elder Miao's dignity. Fifth Elder Miao had a tyrannical temper to begin with, so how could he endure Miao Yi's mockery? In an instant, Fifth Elder Miao's face and neck turned red. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws as he pounced towards Miao Yi. Fortunately, Fourth Elder Miao understood Fifth Elder Miao's personality. Before Fifth Elder Miao could fly into a rage, Fourth Elder Miao hurriedly held onto Fifth Elder Miao with both hands, preventing him from rushing to his head. Facing Fifth Elder Miao's ferocious face, which was baring his fangs and glaring his eyes, Miao Yi could not help but tremble. Miao Yi just stood there, as she gave a contemptuous and ridiculing smile. Following that, she raised up one finger and spoke calmly, "Since elders have accused me of so many crimes in front of me, then I will answer all of you one question at a time." Chapter 2842. Meowie's voice paused as she slowly smiled. "So it's reasonable for me to stand on Meow Tribe's turf." The few elders looked at each other in dismay, not saying a word. Immediately following that, Meowie raised her second finger. "2. I concealed my ability because I want to live." After she said that, the few elders' expressions had a subtle change. Indeed, if Meowie hadn't concealed her ability back then, the her who had yet to grow up, she would absolutely die in Meow Rongrong and Madame Meow's hands. If it was them, they would also make the same choice. Momentarily, the few elders' gazes started to wander. A light laugh was heard from the side. This laughter was as melodious as a silver bell. Yiqing Luo hugged Bear with both her hands as her face was filled with a smile which didn't look like a smile. She looked at the few elders' different expressions as she ridiculed. "Fifth Elder Meow can ask such a brainless question. I'm really worried about your brain. A person with this kind of brain like yours can become the Meow Tribe's fifth elder. TSK. No wonder Meow Tribe has been going downhill for so many years." "You." Fifth Elder Meow was so infuriated that his eyes turned red as he gritted his teeth and clenched his fists tightly, struggling with all his might in an attempt to break free from Fourth Elder Meow. Fourth Elder Meow suppressed his voice. Calm down. That's Yiqing Luo, the person whom the Overlord dotes on." Fifth Elder Meow was so infuriated that his chest kept heaving up and down, but he could only suppress it in his heart. Yiqing Luo strolled over lazily as her gaze swept past the few elders in front of her. Not only is Fifth Elder Meow's brain not working well, even his words are contradictory. It's so amusing. Yiqing Luo's expression changed slightly. She raised her hand as her slender fingers pressed against her lower jaw, putting on an unfathomable look as she sneered. "One moment, you said he was coveting Meow Tribe's power, coveting Meow Tribe's sacred maiden position, and the next moment, it changed to wanting to destroy Meow Tribe." She paused as a chilly smile appeared between her brows. The speed of her speech also slowed down as she said word by word, "Don't you feel that your words are simply too stupid?" Fifth Elder Meow's face turned as black as charcoal. He gritted his teeth so hard that they made cracking sounds. The other elders looked at each other in dismay. The more they looked, the worse their expressions became. The smile on Yiqing Luo's lips grew even more radiant. It was like a blooming rose, exuding a coquettish aura. "You all are truly laughable. Yesterday, you all thought that he was a rare Meow Gu genius, and racked your brains to make ye stay. But today, all of you are doubting ye again." Yiqing Luo's ridiculing laughter made those few elders instantly feel ashamed. "I'll say it one last time." Meowie's elegant voice sounded out calmly. "I chose the Meow Tribe and chose to participate in the Holy Maiden selection ceremony because of my mother's dying wish. For my mother's sake, I cannot destroy the Meow Tribe. After all, no matter how unbearable this place was, it was also the place where her mother and aunt had been saved. It was also the place where she grew up." Of course, Meowie wouldn't say these words out loud. Great Elder Meow stared into Meowie's eyes for a long time. In the end, he was defeated. His arms drooped down as he clenched his fists tightly. "Forget it. Since you're the one who passed the selection's final round, and Sacred Maiden has already acknowledged you, this elder will believe you this time." Chapter 2843. Saying that, Grand Elder Meow bowed towards Meow Ji and led the other elders back to prepare for the ceremony. They had barely taken a few steps. A young lady's chilly voice was heard from behind. "Wait a minute." Grand Elder Meow and the others' hearts tightened. Hearing this voice, they felt a surge of coldness. Their feet subconsciously stopped. The young lady's chilly voice rang once again, and this time, there was a hint of a smile. "Elders, don't be in a hurry to leave. You've already asked clearly what you wanted to ask, so Next, it's my turn. His voice made the elders feel as if a heavy weight was pressing down on them once again. Grand Elder Miao was the first to turn his head back as a Maitreya Buddha-like smile hung on his face. Time is pressing and we still have many things to prepare. If Miss Yi has anything to ask us, why not we wait for the King of Venomous Worms to acknowledge the inheritance ceremony before we discuss in detail? I've always not had much patience. Yi Qing Luo replied straightforwardly. If I'm impatient, I can't guarantee that I won't get angry in the middle of the ceremony. Her pink lips rose slightly as she smiled lazily. Her tone sounded like a young lady complaining, with a hint of coquettishness. But the few elders could hear the threat in the young lady's words. The expressions of the few elders instantly turned ugly. To be threatened by a young lass. They had lived for more than half of their lives and had always been respected. How could they feel at ease? But, because of Yi Qing Luo's status, they didn't dare to show their anger. Hurry and ask what you want to ask. If you delay the King of Venomous Worms' inheritance ceremony, you will bear the consequences alone. Fifth Elder Miao was originally very aggrieved, and on seeing Yi Qing Luo's arrogance, how could he bear with his anger? Especially Fifth Elder Miao, who was intentionally brainwashed by someone. He totally disliked Yi Qing Luo. Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong have been released? Yi Qing Luo didn't beat around the bush, as she directly looked into the few elders' eyes and asked. Fifth Elder Miao's eyes opened wide. What nonsense are you talking about? Grand Elder Miao's eyes flashed as he immediately stood in front of Fifth Elder Miao, putting on his signature amiable smile. Has Miss Yi misunderstood something? The former chief and the former Missy did such a shameful thing to the Miao tribe. How could they be released? As he spoke, he gave Second Elder Miao a look. He gestured to Second Elder Miao to drag Fifth Elder Miao away. Then, he continued with a smile. Old Fifth's words were said by the former First Miss and Old Fifth. Old Fifth had always been on good terms with the former clan leader, so he always remembered these words. That's why there was such a misunderstanding. Second Elder Miao and Fourth Elder Miao pulled Fifth Elder Miao away. Miao Yi noticed the commotion and frowned. He was about to open his mouth to stop her, but he caught a glimpse of Yi Qing Luo's glare. Miao Yi was stunned and stopped what she was about to say. He could only watch as Fifth Elder Miao was dragged away. Seeing this, Grand Elder Miao breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. The smile on his face became even more amiable. I will find an opportunity to explain the matter regarding the former clan chief and eldest young miss to Old Fifth. Yi Qing Luo only smiled gently but didn't continue the conversation. Chapter 2844. This time round, Yi Qing Luo didn't stop Grand Elder Miao from leaving. When Grand Elder Miao left, his footsteps were slightly hesitant. After a few steps, he didn't hear the young lady stopping him. Immediately, he hastened his footsteps and left speedily. He was afraid that Yi Qing Luo would go back on her words and pester him endlessly. Grand Elder Miao's figure quickly disappeared in front of the three of them. The area outside the Sacred Maiden's courtyard instantly quietened down. Miao Yi's brows creased tightly as she looked at Yi Qing Luo and asked, Qing Luo, why didn't you let Fifth Elder Miao speak clearly? Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she squinted her eyes with a smile which didn't look like a smile. In the depths of her eyes, there seemed to be a stream of light which kept flickering. This stream of light reflected into Miao Ji's eyes. Miao Ji only felt a chill throughout her body, as though a cold ray had spread from her feet to her entire body. Miao Ji couldn't help but rejoice silently. Luckily her Yi was friends with Yi Qingqing. If she was an enemy, she was afraid that even she was not Yi Qing Luo's opponent. No need to ask, I can tell that Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong should have been released. Yi Qing Luo's voice was calm without any excess emotions. Before coming here, those few elders should have met Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong. Miao Ji and Miao Yi had the same feeling about this, but they couldn't believe that this was true. Miaoi's brows creased even tighter. Those two are the Miao tribe's traitors. They have offended the Overlord and you, and also offended the Qinghua sect. Those few elders seem to be more selfish, and only want to secure their own elder's position. Why would they take such a huge risk to hide the truth about those two people? To those people, we are after all outsiders. Miao Ji gave a cold smile as her lips twitched. Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong have been in power for so many years and are completely Miao tribe people. I can confirm that if Miao Rongrong had a chance to make a comeback, they would absolutely not hesitate to kick us aside and help Miao Rongrong up. They can't bear to kick Miao Gu's genius away. Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly. One becomes sacred maiden and the other becomes clan leader. It's a happy ending. Miao Yi and Miao Ji looked at each other, their expressions changing. Although the Miao tribe leader was the tribe leader, his power was not as great as that of the saintess. The holy maiden of the Miao tribe was the true leader of the tribe. If Miao Rongrong became the saintess of the Miao tribe, even if Miao Yi was the chief of the Miao tribe, she would still be suppressed to the point where there was no room for her to breathe. Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong sure have a good plan. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose as she looked at Miao Yi. These few elders have apparently been brainwashed by Miao Rongrong, and they don't trust you. If I didn't guess wrongly later when the recognition ceremony starts, your every action will be restricted. It was just as Great Elder Miao had said. They would never allow any accidents to happen, to prevent Miao Rongrong's words from becoming a reality. This was to prevent Miao Yi from thinking of ways to ruin the Miao tribe during the ceremony. They would carefully control everything about Miao Yi. Those two, what are they planning? What are they trying to do? Miao Ji's expression darkened. Miao Rongrong, don't tell me you're planning to fight for the position of Holy Virgin during the ceremony? Chapter 28:45. Miao Ji gritted her teeth. I'll go and watch the inheritance ceremony. I want to see what they're up to. No need. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up slightly, revealing a calm smile. I'm here, rest assured. Miao Ji wanted to refuse. After all, they were in the Miao tribe, and her identity as the Holy Virgin still had some prestige. However, before Miao Ji could reject him, Miao Yi replied, Auntie, you should go rest and rest. Wait for me to go to Holy Maiden Pavilion to find you. Miao Ji swallowed the words that she was about to say. Miao Rongrong and Miao Yixiong's reputation has been ruined because of what happened to the Qinghua clan. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she looked at Miao Ji. Even if those few elders want Miao Rongrong to become the sacred maiden, that would depend on whether the Miao clansmen agree to it or not. She paused, her eyes curved into a smile. After all, Miao Rongrong, and her own father, performed a scene of taboo love. No matter how magnanimous the Miao tribesmen are, they will not be able to accept this. Then, she tilted her head and said, Moreover, the main reason why Miao Rongrong and Miao Yixiong ended up like this was because they tried to poison Ah Xian, the great Dizun. Moreover, with my current status and the attitude of the Qinghua sect, is it even possible for Miao Rongrong to become the Holy Maiden? The two of them listened carefully to Yi Qing Luo's words. His eyes instantly lit up. Yi Qing Luo's words weren't without reason. Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong's deeds were a disgrace to the Miao tribe. Miao Rongrong really wanted to return to the Miao tribe. It was definitely not that easy. Miao Ji's heart was immediately at ease. Qing Luo, I'm curious. Miao Ji recalled Great Elder Miao's reaction. If those two people had really returned from the Qinghua sect, why did Great Elder Miao still dare to ask you to investigate the Qinghua sect? Everyone knew that Yi Qing Luo and the leader of the 3,000 Peach Blossoms had a close relationship. All he had to do was ask. The 3,000 Peach Blossoms would soon bring news of the Qinghua sect. The matter of Miao Rongrong and Miao Yixiong being brought out of Qinghua clan would soon reach Yi Qing Luo's ears. But Grand Elder Miao seemed as though he wasn't worried that Yi Qing Luo would search for news of Qinghua sect. Yi Qing Luo's eyes curled into a smile as her eyes shimmered with an additional sense of ridicule. Even if the 3,000 peach blossoms went to investigate, the news they would probably bring back would be, Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong are indeed in the underground prison of Qin Yu sect. Those two people. Miao Yi's face paled. Yi Qing Luo's gaze gradually sunk as it turned gloomy and deep. Those two people in Elation sect should have been swapped out. Swap. Miao Yi and Miao Ji were stunned. Miao Yi clenched her fists in anger. We should have exposed them just now. They want to make it impossible for me to become the Saintess in peace, and I will make it impossible for them to conduct the inheritance ceremony in peace. This point you have already done it. Yi Qing Luo glanced at her. Miao Rongrong and those elders should be very certain that you don't have the whereabouts of the king of venomous worms on you, so they specially went to the Saintess courtyard to force you to hand over the king of venomous worms, so that they could be at ease. You still refuse to let him take a look at the king of venomous worms, and adding on to the brainwashing words that Miao Rongrong said to him, he was definitely absent-minded when he conducted the inheritance ceremony, and was in a trance, unable to set his mind at ease. Chapter 2846. Since those elders are unable to completely trust you and have other intentions, then let them carry their last bit of hope and fall into despair. Yi Qing Luo's voice was languid, with a terrifying charm. Destroy their disloyalty in front of everyone, so that Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong have no chance to make a comeback. Let them know, in the entire Miao tribe, only you alone, is the person that they truly need to be loyal to. As Miao Yi listened, tears welled up in her eyes. Yi Qing Luo's schemes. All to pave the way for her future in the Miao tribe? Looking at Miao Yi's reddened eyes, Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and rubbed her head. All right, don't be in a hurry to be touched. After everything has settled down, I don't mind if you repay me with your body. Miao Yi's originally touched heart was tickled by Yi Qing Luo's words. She burst out laughing. I don't dare to devote my life to you. I'm afraid His Majesty will tear me apart. The atmosphere returned to a relaxed one. When Miao Ji saw this scene, she was relieved. Yi Qing Luo was by Miao Yi's side. She did not need to worry that Miao Yi would be humiliated during the ceremony. On the contrary, she should be more worried about those who were seeking their own death and offended Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo was so protective of Miao Yi. What she needed to do now was to repay Yi Qing Luo, to find the best way to remove the love worm and the centrifugal worm at the same time. The exhaustion from a sleepless night disappeared in this moment of relaxation, and drowsiness rushed to his head. Miao Ji pressed the corners of her eyes and waved her hand. Go to the land of the king of venomous worms. I'll go back to my room to rest and wait for your good news. The two looked at each other and smiled. The two of them walked side by side toward the land of the king of venomous worms. He had only taken a few steps. Yi Qing Luo acutely sensed something. She frowned and turned to look at a certain place in the Saintess courtyard. What's wrong? Miao Yi asked. Yi Qing Luo's gaze swept the surroundings and didn't detect any other presence before she retracted her gaze. Nothing much, maybe it's my misperception. She felt as if someone had been staring at her. Yi Qing Luo didn't take this episode to heart. Pulling Miao Yi along, they quickly disappeared from the Saintess domain. Yi Qing Luo didn't know. Not long after she left, a tall and slender figure walked out from the darkness. That figure was like a god, noble and elegant. The figure was dressed in a flowing purple robe, and his black hair was let loose behind him. That cold and peerless face exuded an icy coldness. Since you want to see her, why do you have to sneak around? Miao Ji turned around and looked at the man behind her. The great Di Zun is starting to be sneaky? Dmo Xian's expression was cold, his icy cold peach blossom eyes fixed on the direction where Yi Qing Luo left. What you said to this lord last night, is it true? Whether it's true or not, the Overlord should already know the answer, right? Miao Ji replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Overlord, you must have felt that Miss Yi is a very special existence to you. Dmo Xian's eyes darkened. He tilted his face to the side, and his thin lips moved as he spat out coldly, "The separation curse makes me forget my beloved? That woman is my beloved?" When he asked this question, Dmo Xian's tone was obviously stiff, as though he was admitting his inner feelings towards Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 2847. Although I'm not sure how much love you and Miss Yi have without the centrifugal worm. Miao Ji's smile became gentler, but I'm sure that you absolutely love her. Dmo Xian's pupils contracted as the hands by his side clenched into fists. Miao Ji noticed the man's tensed-up emotions. This proved that Dmo Xian had indeed taken her words into his head. She smiled. "The reason why I told you about the centrifugal worm is not because I want to use this to build a relationship with the Overlord, but—" Miao Ji paused as her voice became gentler. "I don't want to see Miss Yi upset." "Difficult?" Dmo Xian frowned as he spat out two words in a hoarse voice. "Yeah, after all she loves you." Miao Ji nodded seriously. "You used to love each other so much, she loved you so much, but you don't remember her, and always used sharp words to poke her heart. How could she not be upset?" Miao Ji lowered her eyelids. "Last night, didn't I tell the Overlord that after you left, Miss Yi was alone in the room, very sad, very upset. Moreover, she didn't sleep last night because she was worried about you." Dmo Xian recalled earlier when he saw the obvious greenish-black under Yi Qing Luo's eyes. All the muscles in his body tensed up. There was a kind of feeling in his chest. He couldn't describe that feeling. Only his mind was filled with the greenish-black under Yi Qing Luo's eyes and the words, "Didn't sleep last night." "Overlord, I just want to give you a piece of advice." Miao Ji had been paying attention to the changes in Dmo Xian's emotions, although it wasn't real. But Miao Ji noticed it. When he mentioned Yi Qing Luo, the atmosphere would always freeze for a moment. It was enough to prove that the current Dmo Xian didn't really have no feelings for Yi Qing Luo. If you believe in your heart, believe in your first feeling. Then don't do anything to hurt Miss Yi. Miao Ji continued to speak. Otherwise, when the poison in your body is cured, the one who will regret it will be you, Overlord. Dmo Xian's eyes deepened, filled with a deep black. Like a whirlpool, it kept churning in his eyes. He clenched his fists tightly again. After that, his figure flashed and disappeared before Miao Ji's eyes. An extremely cold aura rose in the air. Miao Ji quietly looked at the direction where Dmo Xian had left. He didn't seem to be affected by the cold light at all. Slowly, a smile appeared on his face as he shook his head. Then, he sighed softly, turned around, and entered the Saintess courtyard. The hour was drawing near. Miao Yi and Yi Qing Luo arrived late. Fourth Elder Miao had been waiting on the path to the land of the King of Venomous Worms. The moment he saw Miao Yi, he rushed forward anxiously. "Miss Miao, you're finally here. Boss and the others have been waiting for you for a long time." After the bell rang, it was time for the ceremony to begin. Now, there was only the time it took for an incense stick to burn before the bell would ring. However, the King of Venomous Worms that Miao Yi said would appear before the inheritance ceremony started was still nowhere to be found. More than 300 tribesmen of the Miao tribe had gathered outside the land of the King of Venomous Worms. There were also more than 200 guests. Why they were here? Other than witnessing the birth of the Miao tribe's saintess. The most important thing was to see how the ancient King of Venomous Worms looked like. The elders were so anxious that they couldn't even stand properly. Chapter 2848. Miao Yi glanced at Fourth Elder Miao indifferently. "What's wrong? Is there anything wrong with the inheritance ceremony?" No. Everything is ready." Fourth Elder Miao wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said anxiously, "But, Miss Miao, that ancient Gu King, you haven't." Miao Yi raised her eyebrows and said with a smile, "Fourth Elder Miao, do you not believe me?" "No, that's not it." Fourth Elder Meow did not dare to say that he did not believe her. He broke out in a cold sweat and said, "What I mean is that all the preparations are in place and the time is almost up. First, Miss Meow should send the King of Venomous Worms back to the land of the King of Venomous Worms before the guests arrive to prevent others from thinking too much." Meowie narrowed her eyes, tilted her head and smiled at the young lady beside her. "Ching Luo, do you think I should listen to him and take out the King of Venomous Worms first?" Meowie was very clear. With her status, it was basically impossible for her to avoid the control of the elders. For the Meow tribe's reputation, the 4 elders would definitely join forces to suppress her aura. If he was really suppressed by the 4 elders at the same time, wouldn't that fulfill Meow Rongrong's wish? So Meowie decisively hugged onto Yiqing Luo's thigh. As long as Yiqing Luo was around, it didn't matter what tricks those elders wanted to play. They had to consider Yiqing Luo's identity and the power behind her. As expected, just as Meowie turned her words towards Yiqing Luo, Fourth Elder Meow's face instantly turned pale. He opened his mouth and tried to stop her several times. However, he couldn't think of any reason to stop him. If Yiqing Luo's identity was still Yi Luo, even if he had a slight relationship with the Overlord, they could still muster up the courage to gamble for the future of the Meow tribe. But Yiqing Luo was Yiqing Luo. She was the elder sister of the new leader of the West Continent's 3 Springs sect, the strongest student of the best academy, Heavenly Academy, the little hero who saved the students of various continents and saved the West Continent from the calamity of extinction. In addition, as everyone knew, the Overlord pampered West Continent's Yiqing Luo in the palm of his hand. Even his only mount, the 9-tailed white fox, was at Yiqing Luo's disposal. This was enough to prove Yiqing Luo's status in the Overlord's heart. How would they dare to show any disrespect towards Yiqing Luo? Fourth Elder Meow was begging with all his might, hoping that Yiqing Luo would not interfere in the Meow tribe's matters. Immediately following that, Yiqing Luo glanced sideways and met Meowie's line of sight as her pink lips rose slightly. Fourth Elder Meow's heart was in his throat. Yiqing Luo chuckled. "Of course you can't hand it over. Can't a silly lady like you tell that my heart isn't on your side at all? If you hand over the King of Venomous Worms, I'm afraid you won't be able to keep your position as the Sacred Maiden." Yiqing Luo's reply made Fourth Elder Meow's heart tremble. His entire face instantly turned deathly pale. He stood stiffly on the spot with a look of disbelief on his face. They couldn't believe that Yiqing Luo could actually say out their inner thoughts so clearly. They had no intention of leaving any face for their elders. Fourth Elder Meow's face sank. He gritted his teeth and frowned. He was infuriated, but he still forced a smile. Miss Yi, what are you saying? Miss Meow is the only direct descendant of the Meow tribe. Of course we will be loyal to Miss Meow." Chapter 2849. Meowie put on an obedient look as she nodded. "Then I'll hide the King of Venomous Worms well." Yiqing Luo's face showed that the child was worth teaching as she replied with a warm smile, "And hide it well. Don't let those people with ill intentions steal the King of Venomous Worms." Fourth Elder Meow, who was standing by the side. When did Meowie become so obedient? Yesterday's aura was fully unleashed. Not long ago when they met, she still had a noble and cold attitude. How did she become such an obedient person now? Furthermore, Yiqing Luo's words. Was she treating him as non-existent? Was he purposely mocking their elder for pretending to obey but secretly opposing in front of him and harboring evil intentions? Fourth Elder Meow was so infuriated that his beard was flying, but on account of Yiqing Luo's face, he could only keep his anger to himself. Unable to ask for the whereabouts of the King of Venomous Worms, the 3 of them were getting closer and closer to the land of the King of Venomous Worms. Fourth Elder Meow's heart was getting more and more flustered. This Meowie was simply impervious to everything. Plus Yiqing Luo was protecting her by her side. Even if they wanted to follow the original plan, to control Meow-ee with the four of them. It was impossible. The nearer they got to the land of the king of venomous worms, the more anxious fourth elder Meow was. Looking at the two young ladies in front, chatting happily, his heart was getting more and more anxious. How could the two people in front not feel fourth elder Meow's impatience, as well as his increasingly anxious mood? They only acted as though they knew nothing. Like the few disloyal people in the Meow tribe. The more they behaved calmly and freely, the more they scratched their hearts and liver. Not knowing. Would the Meow father and daughter pair, hiding in the dark, be anxious? Very quickly, this question was answered. Right at the land of the king of venomous worms, at the entrance of the rear mountain, an old man dressed in a white robe walked over in quick steps. Apparently, this old man had been waiting at the entrance of the rear mountain right from the start, just to block Meow-ee. Eldest young Miss Meow, hurry, hurry, there's only less than half an incense's time left. You have to hurry and prepare to start the king of venomous worms' inheritance ceremony. The person who came was the slightly plump and amiable-looking great elder Meow. He had an anxious and friendly smile on his face. The moment they met, he wasn't asking about the Goo King, but he was worried that he had missed the best time to inherit. Big brother. Fourth elder Meow clenched his fists and immediately rushed towards great elder Meow. Grand elder Meow glanced at him but did not say anything. Then, he looked at Meow-ee, who was standing motionless at the side, and called out, "Young lady Meow?" Great elder Meow's attitude has changed so quickly. I can't quite get used to it. A languid voice came from the young lady beside Meow-ee. Yi-Ching Luo leaned lazily on Meow-ee's shoulder as she squinted her eyes. Not long ago, didn't Grand Elder Meow put on a questioning expression, wanting Yi to hand over the Goo King first? What's wrong? There's less than the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn left. Great Elder Meow isn't going to ask any more? He was just that straightforward. It was so straightforward that it made those elders of the Meow tribe who had other thoughts to feel suffocated. Great Elder Meow was indeed Great Elder Meow. After hearing Yi-Ching Luo's ridicule, there wasn't any change on his expression. He only looked at Meow-ee with some guilt as he smiled. Since this elder said that I believe eldest young Miss Meow, then I really believe her. Chapter 2850. She had to admit that Grand Elder Meow's words weren't wrong at all. If it was someone who didn't know the truth, they might really believe Grand Elder Meow. Meow-ee's eyelashes fluttered as she slowly raised her eyes and met Grand Elder Meow's eyes. Grand Elder Meow, you really believe in me? Grand Elder Meow's gaze was calm as he gave a calm smile. Of course. After the ceremony, you will be the Meow tribe's sacred maiden. This elder's heart is naturally on your side. Meow-ee revealed a smile on her face, but beneath her eyes surfaced a sliver of undetectable ridicule. Her tone was appropriately touched. With Grand Elder Meow's words, I feel assured. Grand Elder Meow still wanted to say something. Fifth Elder Meow's urging voice was heard from behind. Boss, time is almost up. If you have anything to say, say it on the way. Right, there's not much time left. Grand Elder Meow's face was filled with an amiable smile. Eldest young Miss Meow, please. He stretched out his hand as he gestured for Meow-ee to leave first. The entrance to the rear mountain of the land of the King of Venomous Worms was a tunnel that led directly to the King of Venomous Worms' nurturing grounds. Entering from the rear mountain entrance, they just needed to make a few turns and they would reach their destination. Meow-ee held Yi-Ching Luo's hand and was just about to leave when she was stopped by Grand Elder Meow. Miss Yi, please hold on. Meow-ee's petite body stiffened as her eyes flashed. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes revealed as expected, deep meaning as her lips curled slightly as she smiled at Grand Elder Meow. This is the Meow tribe's secret grounds. Although Miss Yi and eldest young Miss Meow have a close relationship, but ultimately you're not a Meow tribe member, so... Grand Elder Meow explained in a warm voice. Saying that, he intentionally paused for a moment. Yi-Ching Luo's brows rose slightly. Oh? I can't enter? This tunnel can only be entered by Miao Tribe's sacred maiden, Miao Tribe leader, Elder Miao Tribe and the last sacred maiden candidate. Grand Elder Miao revealed a difficult expression. If Miss Yi doesn't believe me, you can ask the Miao Tribe members. This has been the Miao Tribe's rule for hundreds of years. I didn't say I don't believe you. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand. Since it's the Miao Tribe's rules, it's not good for me to request the elder to break the Miao Tribe's rules for me, so I should abide by it. Just as she finished this sentence, Yi Qing Luo could obviously sense that fifth elder Miao's eyes, which was filled with anxiousness, revealed an unconcealable complacency. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed past a gloomy glint as the smile on her lips grew wider. But I have a few words which I wish to speak to Yi alone. Great Elder Miao thought that Yi Qing Luo was reminding Miao Yi to be careful and not to trust them too much. But when he thought about the plan they had arranged, it was flawless. He didn't take it to heart. Time is pressing. If Miss Yi has anything to say, please say it quickly. With that, Great Elder Miao and the other elders took the lead and entered the tunnel. However, after entering the tunnel, their gazes were fixed unblinkingly on the two people who were whispering to each other. They were extremely vigilant. He had witnessed Yi Qing Luo's treachery. They could not allow any accidents to happen. However, what they were worried about did not happen. Yi Qing Luo only said something to Miao Yi. Following that, she hugged Miao Yi, as though she was cheering for her. After that, she turned around and walked towards the direction of the guest passageway. Grand Elder Miao heaved a sigh of relief. Looked like he had overestimated Yi Qing Luo. After all, she was just a 15-year-old young lady. Her experience of mingling in the world was still too tender. Seeing Miao Yi walking towards the tunnel. Chapter 28:51. Has Miss Yi left? Fourth Elder Miao looked behind Miao Yi as he intentionally asked. Miao Yi's expression was calm as she revealed a smile. Great Elder Miao and the rest had personally witnessed Yi Qing Luo's figure leaving, so they didn't suspect anything as they immediately replied, "Time is of the essence, let's hurry over now." Saying that, he turned around and led the way in front, exchanging a glance with the other three elders. The few of them rolled their eyeballs as they understood what was going on. And fifth Elder Miao was the one who couldn't control the emotions on his face the most. As he walked forward, his peripheral vision kept glancing at Miao Yi. His face was filled with a complacent, sinister smile. The few of them each had their own thoughts. The few of them didn't know. Just outside the tunnel, that young lady who was walking slowly towards the guest passageway, her steps were stiff and extremely swaying. His blazing red robe seemed to have been extinguished. There was not the slightest bit of vigor in it. When Diamo Xian rushed over, what he saw was the swaying forward, totally unaware young lady. Step by step, she brushed past his shoulder and continued walking forward. The young lady's long hair cascaded down, covering the young lady's face. It made one unable to see the emotions on the young lady's face clearly. The young lady kept her head lowered as she walked forward stiffly. Diamo Xian, who was ignored, frowned as he squinted his peach blossom eyes in displeasure. He quickly chased up and grabbed the young lady's arm as with a flash, he drilled into the dense forest. His wide palm pressed directly on the young lady's shoulder as his deep and hoarse voice was extremely deep, "Yi Qing Luo." But the young lady who was pressed against the tree trunk by him didn't show any signs of struggling. Nor did she feel any throbbing when she heard his voice. The young lady just quietly lowered her head. There wasn't any fluctuation of emotions. Why? Treating me as if I don't exist? Diamo Xian gave a cold laugh as a dangerous glint flashed past his eyes. The young lady still didn't reply. So calm that there wasn't a single ripple. To the extent that Diamo Xian couldn't even feel the young lady's breathing. Wait a minute. Breathing? Diamo Xian's cold face moved as his eyes flashed a few times. He raised his hand and his large palm swiftly went past that long hair as he clasped her lower jaw. Her long hair was forced to scatter, and her face was forced to be revealed. Dmo Xian's pupils, upon meeting that face, involuntarily constricted a few times. He spread his arms and tossed the person in his hands out. The red-clothed girl fell to the ground. Under her messy long hair, it was a face without any facial features. In the tunnel, Miao Yi had been vigilantly watching the movements of the four elders. Originally, the four elders were leading the way, and when they were about halfway through the journey, Miao Yi realized that she had been unknowingly surrounded by the four elders in a formation, trapping her in the middle. Walking in front were first elder Miao and fourth elder Miao. Second elder Miao and fifth elder Miao stood behind him. Miao Yi was secretly startled. She had been careful enough. Unknowingly, she was surrounded by a few elders and she was completely unaware of it, looked like the things which Yi Qing Luo had guessed. Step by step, everything was developing towards reality. Boom! Suddenly, the sound of a stone knocking against the rock wall was heard. At the same time, the surrounding elders who seemed to be walking leisurely, speedily rushed up and surrounded Miao Yi. Chapter 28:52. Fifth Elder Miao laughed coldly. Miao Yi, do you really think that you can become the Miao tribe's holy maiden? Ha ha ha, you don't have that qualification. Old 5. Great Elder Miao harshly berated. Even if young Miss Miao might not become the saintess, it is not something you can make up. Miao Yi's eyes flickered. He quickly hid the cold glint in his eyes. How could she not hear it? Great Elder Miao's words sounded like he was trying to clear her name. But in reality, wasn't he silently agreeing to Fifth Elder Miao's words? She might not necessarily become the saintess? As expected of Great Elder Miao. He even calculated all the possible routes of retreat. Miao Yi sneered in her heart, but her face was pale. She frowned and shrank back. What do you mean by that? Fifth Elder Miao kept laughing coldly. Great Elder Miao maintained his smiling expression. Young Lady Miao, there's no need to panic. We just want to confirm if you have the qualifications to become the Miao tribe's holy maiden. Miao Yi's face darkened. She gritted her teeth. Aren't you afraid that my aunt will settle the score with you? Everything I do is for the sake of the Miao tribe. The saintess will understand me, Great Elder Miao replied with a smile. You! Miao Yi took a few steps back in disbelief. Behind him, he bumped into someone. Second Elder Miao lowered his voice and said, Young Lady Miao, don't be impatient. The holy maiden of the Miao tribe is of utmost importance. I just want to make a final confirmation. As long as you perform well and walk out of the underground world, you will still be the one to become the holy maiden. It sounded like he was advising her to be obedient. Miao Yi struggled to break free from Second Elder Miao's support. She bit her lower lip and glared at the four elders. You all planned this from the start. None of you believed me at all. Miao Yi, who do you think you are? Why should I believe you? You're just a vile spawn born from an outsider who seduced the clan leader. Who do you think you are to be the Miao tribe's saintess? Fifth Elder Miao looked at Miao Yi's pale face and felt a surge of joy in his heart. Previously the anger he had suffered under her and Yi Qing Luo's hands seemed to have found a chance to be vented. Old 5. Don't say another word. Second Elder Miao glared at Fifth Elder Miao. First Miss Miao is protected by the king of venomous worms after all. Even if she's not the holy virgin of the Miao tribe, she'll still be the tribe leader. Second Elder Miao glanced at Miao Yi out of the corner of his eye. It was obvious that he had purposely said it for Miao Yi to hear. Obviously, he wanted to use the position of the Miao tribe's leader to appease her. Miao Yi lowered her head. Her fine long hair covered the expression on her face. It also blocked the slight curve of her lips. Indeed, everything was the same as what Qing Luo had guessed. These people were really shameless. He used the excuse that the Miao people were good. He was scheming against her, taking away the position of saintess that should have belonged to her. He even put on a "you should be deeply grateful" attitude, thinking that letting her become the Miao tribe leader was already thinking highly of her. Meow-Ee's slender fingers tightened one by one. A low chuckle came from her mouth. The few elders who were still looking at each other were startled when they heard the laughter and looked at Meow-Ee. At this moment, Meow-Ee had already raised her head. A pair of chilly eyes stared at them coldly. In the tunnel, there was no wind. The wind blew her hair away from her face. Chapter 28:53. Meow-Ee, you're just a vile spawn born from another clan. Letting you be the clan leader is already giving you a lot of credit. Don't be so ungrateful. Fifth Elder Meow was frightened by Meow-Ee's laughter, his voice trembling. He was an old man in his 50s. Frightened by a little girl? This was something that Fifth Elder Meow did not want to admit. Immediately, the words that came out of his mouth became even more venomous. If it wasn't for the protection of the King of Venomous Worms, do you really think that you can live until now? You even tried to occupy the King of Venomous Worms and ruin the reputation of the Meow tribe? Let me tell you, if you don't hand over the Goo King today, don't even think about walking out of this tunnel. Old 5. Great Elder Meow sounded a little angry. You, go to the land of the Goo King, and tell the people of the Meow Goo tribe that there is one more candidate for the position of Saintess. Now the elders have added a competition. The ceremony of the Goo King's inheritance will be postponed to 2 hours later. Fifth Elder Meow was instantly terrified by Great Elder Meow's roar. He stared venomously at Yi Ching Luo, but still listened to Grand Elder Meow's orders, to inform them of this matter. Meow-Ee pursed her red lips. According to the Meow tribe's rules, matters regarding the selection of the Holy Maiden must be decided by the Meow tribe's Holy Maiden. I don't think my aunt knows about the addition of a competition. What you are doing is breaking the rules of the Meow tribe. Great Elder Meow's amiable smile froze. He did not expect Meow-Ee to be so familiar with the rules of the Meow tribe. Just as the few elders were silent, another pebble was knocked on the rock wall, accompanied by the woman's bell-like laughter. Meow-Ee, don't call me aunt, aunt, aunt. Do you think that you can be fearless in the Meow tribe just because you have the Saintess as your backing? Don't forget, your aunt, she is not from the Meow tribe at all. His voice reminded the elders of the situation, especially when she heard the last sentence. The faces of the 3 elders immediately turned ashen. Miao Ji was indeed not from the Meow tribe, because Miao Ji was the previous Saintess, Miao Shi, who had pushed her to the position of Saintess. Miao Ji had indeed done well in the past few years. Because of that, the elders subconsciously neglected Miao Ji's identity. Now, he was reminded by the woman. They immediately broke out in cold sweat. He felt that for so many years, an outsider had been in charge of the Meow tribe. If they were not careful, wouldn't the Meow tribe be destroyed by an outsider? The woman laughed maniacally as she walked out from the darkness. The woman was dressed in a jade-green dress and looked like a green lotus. When she saw the woman's face clearly, Meow-Ee narrowed her eyes and said in a cold voice, "It really is you, Meow-Rong-Rong." Meow-Rong-Rong raised her eyebrows and looked Meow-Ee up and down with a smile. "It really is me? So, you already knew it was me? Other than you, who else could have the elders of the Meow tribe come up with such a plan?" Meow-Ee met Meow-Rong-Rong's eyes coldly. "What exactly do you want to do? Don't you understand what I want to do?" Meow-Rong-Rong giggled. She looked at Meow-Ee with a venomous gaze. Meow-Ee's face darkened. Her gaze slowly shifted to Great Elder Meow. "Great Elder Meow, don't you know that she escaped from the dungeon of Chinua clan? How can a fugitive compete with me for the position of Saintess?" Chapter 28:54. The meaning behind his words was, whether Meow-Rong-Rong was a fugitive or not, it would be decided after the competition. If she won against Meow-Rong-Rong, she, Meow-Ee, would be the holy lady of the Meow tribe, and Meow-Rong-Rong would still be a fugitive. But if she lost to Meow-Rong-Rong, Meow-Rong-Rong would no longer be a beggar. Hearing Great Elder Meow's shameless words, Meow-Ee laughed angrily. "It looks like Great Elder Meow doesn't know what conscience is at all. You can even accept a fugitive without any misgivings. This young lady really admires your big face and big heart. Being ridiculed by a junior, Elder Meow was not angry. Great Elder Meow did not get angry. If young Mistress Meow is confident in her own abilities, she would not be afraid of another match. Is this a question of competition? Meow-Ee's face was full of disdain. I am the dignified Miss Meow, the only direct descendant of the Meow tribe recognized by the Goo King. She is a fugitive who would not even let her own father off. What right does she have to compete with me? Why should I give her this chance? Meow-E was not at a disadvantage when she started to speak viciously. Moreover, she purposely targeted Meow Rongrong's sore spot. Meow Rongrong felt a tearing pain in her heart from these words. Her face was livid as she gritted her teeth and roared, Meow-E, are you afraid of competing with me? I am not afraid of a woman who would have sex with her own father, Meow-E retorted with a sneer. Meow Rongrong's face was even more livid. There was no trace of her previous arrogance. Since you are not afraid, then compete with me. Do you think that I am someone that can be provoked by any Tom, Dick, or Harry? I look down on someone who would have sex with her own father. Comparing with you lowers my status. Meow-E continued to sneer as she looked at Meow Rongrong mockingly. You. Meow Rongrong's face was red with anger. Her petite body was trembling uncontrollably. Why was this Meow-E so sharp-tongued? She had poked at her sore spot again and again. She was just a vile spawn. What right did she have to be so arrogant and act all high and mighty? She, Meow Rongrong, was the true Meow tribe, a Meow person who could truly become the holy maiden of the Meow tribe. Great Elder Meow, aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by letting this kind of trash become the Meow tribe's holy maiden? Meow-E looked at Great Elder Meow after mocking Meow Rongrong. Her face was full of mockery. Or should I say, what Great Elder Meow cares about is whether the Meow tribe's holy maiden is of pure Meow bloodline. Meow-E had directly pointed out his thoughts. The amiable smile that Great Elder Meow had maintained all this time also froze for a moment. Great Elder Meow, why waste your breath on her? I think she's simply afraid of me and doesn't dare to compete with me. Meow Rongrong sneered and puffed out her chest. You're just a bastard, yet you have the nerve to strut around in front of me. You're just a bastard who was born without a father. The coldness in Meow Rongrong's eyes intensified. Meow-E knew that she had stepped on her sore spot. Didn't she know how to trample on Meow-E? However, Meow-E's reaction completely exceeded Meow Rongrong's expectations. Meow-E's expression did not change in the slightest. She just smiled coldly and stared at her with a face full of mockery and disdain. That's right. A child like you, who was born by a mother and taught by a father, has been taught to roll around with your own father. Then, after pausing for a few breaths, she shrugged. I don't dare to have a father who can roll around with his own daughter. Meow Rongrong exploded in anger. Chapter 28:55. Meow-E dodged to the side and grabbed hold of Fourth Elder Meow, who was trying to stop her. Then, she pulled him hard. Before Fourth Elder Meow could react, he was pulled by Meow-E and staggered a few steps forward. Meow Rongrong's sharp nails scratched Fourth Elder Meow's face. Ah! Fourth Elder Meow screamed and raised his hand to cover his face. At the same time, Meow-E loosened her grip on his hand. Fourth Elder Meow's face was scratched by the sudden pull, and he did not even have the time to steady his footing. Meow-E loosened her grip. Once again, his body fell forward uncontrollably. Meow Rongrong, who had scratched Fourth Elder Meow's face, realized that she had lost her composure and scratched the wrong person. She panicked. When Fourth Elder Meow pounced on her, Meow Rongrong did not have time to react. She was pinned to the ground by Fourth Elder Meow. Meow Rongrong's delicate body fell heavily on the ground. There was also an old man's aura pressing down on his body. It was a hard and heavy body. She felt as if her internal organs were being squeezed by something, and she coughed violently. She felt a fishy taste in her throat, and then she spat out a mouthful of blood. Get lost! Get lost! Meow Rong Rong roared in a hoarse voice. Fourth Elder Meow's chest was hurting from the woman's impact. He could hear Meow Rong Rong's roar. He remembered that half of his face was scratched by Meow Rong Rong's claws. Then he heard Meow Rong Rong's disdainful tone and how she pushed him away. Fourth Elder Meow's expression turned grim. He raised his hand and pressed it hard on Meow Rong Rong's shoulder. Heh, this is really an eye-opener. Suddenly, a girl's crisp voice made the two people who were entangled on the ground stop their movements. The girl's voice carried a faint smile, full of mockery. The girl tilted her head and blinked her beautiful eyes. She smiled at Great Elder Meow and said, "So, Great Elder Meow has such a taste. Great Elder Meow has taken a liking to Meow Rong Rong not because she's from the Meow tribe, but because she's flirtatious and frivolous enough. It's because she's able to roll around with her own father and accept all of you without any qualms, right?" Great Elder Meow's expression turned extremely ugly. He was so angry that his bones were trembling. Meow-E's words were truly unbearable to the ears. Even Great Elder Meow, who was used to seeing the world, felt his face start to turn red when he heard Meow-E's words. "Meow-E, what nonsense are you spouting?" Meow Rong Rong's eyes widened when she heard Meow-E's mocking words. She shoved Fourth Elder Meow and roared, "It's you! You deliberately set me up. You're the one who pushed this old fart onto me. Meow-E, you're so sinister." The old fart on Meow Rong Rong's body. While Fourth Elder Meow was still in a daze, he was pushed aside by the crazed Meow Rong Rong. Meow Rong Rong did not even look at Fourth Elder Meow. She quickly crawled up from the ground and forcefully wiped away the blood stain at the corner of her lip. Her eyes were vicious and filled with a crazy storm. "Meow-E, you bitch! You want to stop me from becoming a holy lady, right? I want to be a holy lady. I want you to live a hellish life from now on." As Meow Rong Rong spoke, her delicate little face was savage and crazed. She roared and raised her hands high in the air. Her messy black hair danced wildly behind her. Vaguely. Chapter 2856. Second Elder Meow hurried over and helped Fourth Elder Meow to his feet. He looked at Fourth Elder Meow's bloody face and the elder robe he was wearing, which was stained with Meow Rong Rong's blood. "That be asterisk tch. How dare she treat me like this when I've helped her so much?" Fourth Elder Meow gritted his teeth as he wiped the blood off his face. Second Elder Meow lowered his voice. "That's enough. It's because she's a true Meow. If she can't surpass Miss Meow, we'll just kill her later. That will appease our anger." Fourth Elder Meow angrily flung away his blood-stained hand. His eyes were hazy. "If she can't become the Holy Maiden, I'll skin her alive." At that moment, Great Elder Meow's expression suddenly changed. He shouted, "Meow Rong Rong, what are you doing?" However, Meow Rong Rong, who was shrouded in darkness, did not seem to hear Great Elder Meow's voice. She was completely immersed in her own world. Second Elder Meow and Fourth Elder Meow immediately looked in the direction of the voice when they heard it. They saw Meow Rong Rong's body twitching as if she had gone mad. Her face, which was exposed from time to time under her messy hair, was twisted with ecstasy. She was so ferocious that she did not look like a normal person at all. The three elders felt a chill down their spines as they looked at Meow Rong Rong. Meow-E, on the other hand, looked calm as she stared at Meow Rong Rong's fluttering hair and emerald green robe. After staring at her for a while, Meow-E tilted her head and said faintly, "Oh? You mean Meow Rong Rong's appearance here is a scheme?" After a while, Meow-E asked in confusion, "What's her motive?" There was silence in the air. The three elders stared blankly at Meow-E, who was mumbling to herself. When they looked at her again, she was surrounded by a dark aura. Meow Rong Rong was extremely strange. At that moment, the three of them looked at each other and couldn't help but shudder. Meow-E narrowed her eyes and smiled. "So that's how it is. Meow Rong Rong is just a pawn." "Meow. Miss Meow. Who are you talking to? Great Elder Meow forced himself to remain calm as he looked at Meowie. Meowie raised her eyebrows and looked at the three elders. Her smile deepened as she narrowed her beautiful eyes. She did not answer Great Elder Meow's question. Instead, he seemed to be answering someone's question. Save them? No, no, no. They invited a wolf into the house and are seeking their own deaths. It has nothing to do with me. Why should we save them? As if she had heard something, Meow-ee giggled. They did not treat me as a member of the Meow tribe, so I naturally did not need to treat them as my people. After these words were spoken, no matter how stupid the three elders were, he also understood that the them in Meow-ee's words of saving them was referring to them. He looked at Meow-ee's teasing smile. Great Elder Meow's heart sank for a moment. There was an ominous premonition spreading from the bottom of his heart. Strange, it was too strange. This Meow-ee was definitely not playing tricks by talking to herself for no reason. Who was Meow-ee talking to? What did she mean by save? The more Great Elder Meow thought about it, the more flustered he became. He furrowed his white brows and quickly walked toward Meowie. Miss Meow, what do you mean by that? What is this? It's coming. Chapter 2857. These two words caused Great Elder Meow's expression to change abruptly. He instinctively turned his head. Behind him, the strange Meow Rongrong, who was originally standing at the end of the tunnel, had stopped convulsing. Her black hair danced wildly behind her, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Her jade-green robe was now wrapped in a black aura. Her hands were hanging limply by her sides. Her whole body seemed to be out of energy. A face filled with a sinister smile was revealed under the long hair. Her delicate face was twisted into an extremely horrifying expression. In this narrow tunnel, there were luminous pearls all around. The few elders could clearly see the black gas that kept darting around Meow Rongrong's horrifying face. Great Elder Meow's pupils shrank. What's going on? Meow Rongrong is. They looked at each other. Meow Rongrong was like a puppet that was being controlled. There was no puppet that belonged to her soul. She looked extremely strange. Even the experienced and knowledgeable Great Elder Meow couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. Second Elder Meow immediately recalled Meowie's soliloquy, and his expression changed as he quickly walked towards Meowie's direction. Young Miss Meow, you know what's going on, right? What's wrong with her? Meow-ee looked at Meow Rongrong's direction with a smile that didn't look like a smile. You've let a wolf into the house. Don't you know that this wolf is preparing to eat people? The faces of the three elders darkened and turned extremely unpleasant. Still can't tell? The Meow people that you've been thinking about have been completely controlled by another force. Meow-ee didn't care about their emotions as she kindly reminded them. After the three elders saw Meow Rongrong's situation, they indeed thought so. But hearing Meow-ee say it with an incomparably firm tone, their hearts couldn't help but tighten. Controlled? What kind of force could actually control a person? And they hadn't discovered it for so long? Haven't any of you thought about how she, Meow Rongrong and Meow Ishiong got into that kind of trouble, offended Dmo Xian, and was imprisoned in the Qinghua sect's dungeon? How did she manage to escape from the Qinghua sect without attracting any attention? Meow-ee saw that the three elders were silent for a long time, so she continued to speak on her own. His words caused the faces of the three elders to alternate between green and white for a moment, then red and ashamed for a moment. Jia jia jia, suddenly, a strange, hoarse laugh rang out in the tunnel. Hearing this made one's hair stand on end. Meow-ee, after following Yi Qing Luo, that little slut, you've become smarter. That hoarse voice, laughter, was filled with madness and hatred. Meow-ee raised her eyebrows, but there was no fear on her face. It seems that I was right. Meow Rongrong twisted her body stiffly. Step by step, she walked toward Meow-ee on the black air current. The sinister and twisted smile on her face became even more pronounced. So what if I'm right? From the moment you stepped into this tunnel, I've never intended to let you leave this place alive. Miao Rongrong laughed maniacally as her eyes turned hazy. And you bunch of old farts. I want all of you to die. Go to hell. The three elders were so frightened by the vicious and strange Miao-yi that they took a few steps back. Whereas Miao-yi was still standing there. She didn't even avert her gaze. Chapter 28:58. Even though Miao Rongrong walked over with a body full of ruthlessness and a body full of black aura, Miao-yi did not react at all. Miao Rongrong's footsteps stopped 3 steps away from Miao-yi. His face was twisted to the extreme. His eyes were empty and filled with hatred as he stared straight at Miao-yi. Kill me? Miao Rongrong, what a pity you don't have the chance. Miao-yi smiled at Miao Rongrong's gaze. This smile made Miao Rongrong's hatred and anger even more intense. Those eyes that were filled with black mist seemed to be surging with raging flames. No chance? I want to see how long you can be so stubborn. Miao Rongrong roared angrily. She raised her hand and slammed it on the wall beside her. In this narrow tunnel, the earth trembled and the mountains swayed. Gravel rolled down the wall and splashed on the ground. The 3 elders were shocked by Miao Rongrong's sudden craziness, causing their bodies to tense up. Great Elder Miao was the first to react. He forced himself to calm down. Miao Rongrong, this elder has decided to give you a fair chance. Why must you do this to yourself? Chance? Miao Rongrong snorted. She looked at Great Elder Miao with contempt and disdain. Do you think I don't know? Your so-called chance is just to use me to test this little slut's true strength. I just want to know if this little slut is qualified to become the Miao tribe's holy maiden. Great Elder Miao's face turned red. Miao Rongrong had clearly seen through his thoughts. Miao Rongrong sneered disapprovingly. The reason why I became like this, condemned by everyone and ashamed to appear in front of anyone, is all because of you. It's all because of you. I want to take back everything that belongs to me and send all those who harmed me to hell with my own hands. The more she spoke, Miao Rongrong's voice was filled with a demonic murmur. Great Elder Miao wanted to explain, but the current Miao Rongrong had completely fallen into her own madness. Thick black mist was released from Miao Rongrong's body. Following that, a shocking scene unfolded in front of everyone's eyes. The thick black mist was behind Miao Rongrong. Mass after mass, the black gas gradually spread and expanded. In the blink of an eye, the ball of black chi suddenly dissipated. Instead, they were 5 tall and burly men dressed in black robes. Miao-yi's gaze landed on the 5 men's chests and sleeves when she saw the large U embroidered on them. His pupils suddenly constricted. She frowned. Guards from the Palace of Darkness? Weren't these people wearing the clothes of the Palace of Darkness guards that Yen Jinfei had led yesterday? These people were from Dark Shadow Palace. Dark Shadow Palace? The elders looked at the guards in disbelief, thinking about how strong the guards of Abyss Palace were. Their faces were pale with fear. Miao-yi's expression finally turned serious. Miao Rongrong, you're working with the Palace of Gloomy Shadows? Are you scared now? Miao Rongrong sneered, her eyes filled with madness. Any random guard from the Palace of Darkness is stronger than you bunch of trash. Miao-yi, I'll let you know what's called a fate worse than death. Miao Rongrong laughed even harder. The crazier it was, the black aura in her eyes grew thicker. Chapter 28:59. Miao-yi frowned and looked at a place on her shoulder, asking in a low voice, "The mastermind is the Palace of Darkness. What is their goal?" Miao-yi didn't get an answer. Miao Rongrong was already charging towards her face with the black aura. At the same time, the 5 guards of the Abyss Palace moved as well. They dashed towards the few elders at high speed. Facing the attack of the Palace of Darkness guards, the hearts of the 3 elders were instantly filled with shock. They felt a bone-cutting hurricane coming towards them. They wanted to dodge, but they couldn't escape from the aura of the guards. Bang bang bang, a few heavy objects fell to the ground. There were also screams and noises. The few elders slammed into the rock wall in unison. Then, they smashed into the ground. The ground was filled with broken rocks. They cried out in pain. After the Palace of Darkness guards dealt with the 3 elders, he immediately turned around and charged in Miao Yi's direction. Miao Rongrong's attack on Miao Yi. Miao Yi didn't have any intention of fighting back, just dodging with all her might. Miao Yi's speed wasn't fast. It definitely wasn't agile, but every time she would be able to dodge before Miao Rongrong's attack landed. After a few moves, the 3 elders were thrown to the ground. Miao Rongrong didn't even touch the corner of Miao Yi's clothes. Miao Rongrong couldn't believe it. This bastard sister, who she had always looked down upon, had actually climbed over her head one day. Miao Yi was obviously a piece of trash. The more Miao Rongrong thought about it, the more resentment she felt. The black energy in his eyes continued to fly about. When the few guards from the dark secluded palace flew over to help, the guards from the dark secluded palace flew over to help. In Miao Rongrong's eyes, all kinds of emotions appeared, and her killing intent swelled in that instant. "Miao Yi, go and die!" she screamed in a hoarse voice. As she laughed maniacally, she gathered the black energy in her palm and slapped towards Miao Yi's face. No matter how Miao Yi dodged a pincer attack from all directions, Miao Yi wouldn't be able to escape. Thinking about it, Miao Rongrong's sinister smile became even wider. Ah! Suddenly, a scream pierced through the tunnel. A few of the elders who were lying on the ground vomiting blood forcefully propped themselves up and looked over. However, he saw that Miao Yi was standing there unscathed. There was not a single wound on her body, nor was she messy or disheveled. At this moment, a bewitching red light slowly enveloped the entire tunnel. It was like a protective shield. It wrapped around Miao Yi tightly. The elders were shocked and stared in that direction in disbelief. Only then did he notice. As it turned out, the moment the guards charged at them from all directions, Lin Fan's eyes lit up. A red light suddenly shot out from Miao Yi's shoulder. That red light was like a raging flame, rapidly encircling Miao Yi's body. They formed streaks of red light that looked like burning flames. Miao Rongrong was shocked by this scene. He could only watch as the flowing light that lingered around him slowly turned into a slender figure in front of him. That figure stood in front of Miao Yi. Miao Rongrong's hand that was about to strike down was forcefully held in midair by a force. Kacha! The bones in her wrist were broken. Miao Rongrong only had time to scream. Then, he felt a majestic and tyrannical aura that sent the guards surrounding him flying. Chapter 2860. The light and sweet-sounding laughter was like the ringing of a silver bell. In this narrow and long tunnel, it appeared to be extremely illusory. That laughter was so pleasant to the ears that it made one's heart flutter. But unfortunately, it made one's scalp go numb. Miao Rongrong was the latter. The familiar voice was obviously laughing, but Miao Rongrong could hear the malice in the laughter. "Yi Qing Luo! Yi Qing Luo! Why are you here?" Miao Rongrong stared in horror at the young lady who gradually appeared in the flames. Miao Rongrong couldn't believe her own eyes. She had seen it with her own eyes. The flowing light surrounding Miao Yi was a butterfly fluttering its wings, the size of a palm. Its entire body was like a raging flame, blood red. As it fluttered its wings, it seemed like fresh blood was flowing. It was extremely bewitching and strange. After that, Miao Rongrong saw that flowing light butterfly, in front of her eyes, turned into a familiar and horrified figure. Yi Qing Luo's appearance. Not only Miao Rongrong was shocked. The other 3 elders also sat up from the ground in shock. They had even forgotten about the injuries on their bodies. Their minds were filled with Yi Qing Luo, who had transformed from a butterfly into a human form. They had seen Yi Qing Luo leave with their own eyes. They had also seen Miao Yi, alone, walking into the tunnel. How did Yi Qing Luo enter? That butterfly, what was going on? Just as everyone's hearts were pounding in fear, in shock. Great Elder Miao's mind suddenly flashed past a thought. He patted the rock wall fiercely. Is this the legendary substitute goo? Substitute goo? This name of the goo art came out from Great Elder Meow's mouth. The other two elders' faces instantly turned pale. They turned their gazes towards Meowie. This substitute goo, it's you. It's you who cast it? Great Elder Meow's tone was filled with obvious cautiousness and probing. Meowie took a look at them, without even the slightest hope of replying. To these few elders, Meowie no longer had any good impression of them. Yesterday, they were still arguing about her being a Meow Goo genius. Today, after hearing Meow Rongrong's provocation, she believed Meow Rongrong. From the beginning to the end, this group of Meow people had never treated her as a real Meow person. The only reason why he kept her was because of her talent in Meow Goo. Strength, it was not even comparable to the so-called bloodline. To think that they kept saying that she, Meowie, was the real direct descendant of the Dragon King. Such words were truly laughable when compared to what they had done. However, Meowie did not reply. Meow Rongrong could not remain calm. Substitute goo? She was just a waste. How could she know the legendary venomous technique of the Meow tribe? Looking at the entire Meow tribe's history of saintesses, there are probably no more than 3 who can use substitute goo. Substitute goo. It was a long-lost goo technique of the Meow tribe. This goo technique could use goo worms to transform into the appearance of the substitute goo that the host wanted. This substitute goo was used to refresh one's mind. As one's proficiency in this kind of goo technique increases, the time it can exist will become longer and longer. Especially towards the end, it could even pass off as the real goo. No one could tell who was the real one. However, this kind of goo technique, a long, long time ago, it had been lost to the world. Even if Meowie was a Meow Goo genius, it was impossible for her to learn this long-lost legendary goo technique. Chapter 2861. Slut? Meow Rongrong, do you think you have the right to say these 2 words in front of me? Meowie sneered. The bewitching red glow around her gradually dissipated. That young and tender face was filled with coldness. Meowie's hands were clenched tightly. This was the anger that came from the deepest part of her heart. After enduring for so many years, today, she didn't want to endure any longer. She didn't want her mother to bear the infamy of seducing her husband and giving birth to a vile spawn. She wanted everyone to admit that she, Meowie's mother, was the real Madame Meow. The angrier Meowie got, the calmer her expression was, like still water. This was what Yi-Ching Luo taught her. No matter how her heart was in turmoil, don't express it directly on your face. Once she could see her thoughts from her face, that meant that she was going to lose. Facing Meow Rongrong, she would absolutely not lose. Meowie's eyes flashed past a resolute glint. You. What are you looking at? Why am I not qualified? Isn't your mother a slut? Didn't your mother seduce my father and snatch my mother's man? Your mother, that slut, gave birth to you knowing that my mother is here. Aren't you a vile spawn? Meow Rongrong didn't want to admit that she was terrified because of Meowie's gaze. She straightened her neck, retorting and questioning. Little by little, the black air flowing in her eyes covered the whites of her eyes. It made Meow Rongrong look extremely strange and terrifying. Meowie's lips curled up coldly as she stared straight at Meow Rongrong, saying word by word, Meow Rongrong, these few elders should be the clearest about what happened that year. Was it my mother who snatched your mother's man, or your mother, who knew that Meow Yixiong and my mother were together, still shamelessly sticking to her? Meowie pointed behind her, at the row of elders lying on the ground. As her smile deepened, it was my mother who got together with Meow Yixiong first, and your mother merely used her power in the Meow tribe to snatch Meow Yixiong. Speaking of which, I'm a few months older than you. Don't you know who's the bastard here? You. Nonsense. Meow Rongrong's face turned red from Meowie's barrage of words. There was no need to ask the elders about these things. Meow Rongrong herself was very clear about this. It was precisely because she clearly knew that she was younger than Miao Yi by a few months. That was why she had used all means to torture Miao Yi since she was young. However, Miao Yi, a good-for-nothing that she had always looked down on, had brought all of this up in the open. Miao Rongrong was about to go crazy. She pointed at Miao Yi furiously. *tch, you bastard! You even want to frame me, an orthodox Miao. I'll kill you! I'll kill you! Beside him, the few guards from the Abyss Palace charged towards Miao Yi. His speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, only a few shadows could be seen. Miao Yi's eyes were cold, but she did not panic at all. He was filled with anger and hatred towards Miao Rongrong. He had already blocked everything that made her afraid and fearful. Miao Rongrong, you haven't even given me an explanation about what happened between us, and you still want to touch the person I want to protect in front of me? A sweet and coquettish voice rang faintly. Chapter 2862. That hurricane was violent and ferocious. It swiftly entangled those secluded palace's guards. The guards reacted very quickly. The 5 of them immediately spread out to avoid the whirlwind that seemed to have a mind of its own. They were very methodical, after avoiding the initial attack. At the same time, they turned around and pounced towards the direction of the hurricane. These actions, they didn't dare to do it in an instant. The exchange of blows between top experts. What they were competing on was speed. The movements of the 5 guards were like puppets. It was impossible to see any difference or flaws in their movement. It was like looking into a mirror. Just at this moment, a sharp female voice was heard, piercing to the ear. "Ah! Come back quickly! Come back to protect me! Protect me!" That voice was sharp and ear-piercing. It was like a sharp blade cutting one's eardrums. The 5 secluded palace guards who were about to cross hands with the twisting hurricane suddenly froze. Bam, bam, bam! The hurricane directly twisted around the 5 guards. But what made them surprised was, these 5 guards, at the moment when they were entangled by the hurricane, not a single one of them made a defensive action. Instead, they faced those violent hurricanes directly, charging towards Miao Rongrong's direction. It was as though the surrounding sharp blades, which kept cutting their skin, couldn't feel it at all. In an instant, they had already dashed in front of Miao Rongrong. 5 tall and sturdy bodies surrounded Miao Rongrong tightly. Yiqing Luo, who was charging towards Miao Rongrong's direction, had no choice but to stop in her tracks. Yiqing Luo stared at Miao Rongrong's direction, as her eyes sunk slightly. These guards were simply too strange. Just like those 10 over-secluded palace guards at the Miao clan's public square yesterday. It was extremely strange. They didn't seem to be afraid of pain. They were like puppets being controlled by someone else. They only knew how to blindly listen to the instructions. What was even stranger was, those few guards' skin had obviously been cut by the hurricane which she created using her profound energy. She saw it with her own eyes. The parts of the guards which were entangled by the hurricane had turned into shreds. That piece of skin. It was also twisted to the point where countless cracks appeared. There were even bits of flesh flying everywhere, and even white bones could be seen. However, there was no trace of blood at all. This was exactly the same as yesterday, when a dozen guards were killed by the second palace master of the gloomy palace with one slash. There was no blood. Unafraid of pain. This was simply, it was like a high-end puppet. The other 3 elders were also scared silly by the 5 guards. Their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. "You guys aren't dead yet, right?" Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she sized up the injuries on the 5 guards, and at the same time she glanced sideways at the few people lying on the ground. Great Elder Miao's lips had already turned pale, and his breathing was rapid as he coughed violently. Even after holding it in for a long time, he was unable to force out a single word. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as her face was filled with displeasure. However, she did not say anything in the end. Her slender fingers gently swept across her profound phoenix ring. Then, he flicked his finger. Something flashed past the eyes of Great Elder Miao and the others. They reflexively received it. They saw a strange colored medicinal pill lying in their palms. This medicinal pill, although the color was very strange. Chapter 2863. What is this? Fourth Elder Miao asked in a hoarse voice. This is a miracle pill that can save your lives. What's the point of talking so much nonsense? Yiqing Luo didn't even bother to look at him. After you take this pill, your only mission is to protect Yi. After that, stand further away and don't drag me down. You. Fourth Elder Miao clutched his chest as he gritted his teeth. But he had just spat out one word when he felt his blood rushing up. He who had lost too much blood was in a daze. Don't believe me? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her smile was filled with ridicule. Do you think you can live on just by lying here? The three elders' faces turned black. Suddenly, Grand Elder Miao clenched the pill in his hand tightly as he shut his eyes and stuffed it into his mouth. Boss! Second Elder Miao and Fourth Elder Miao cried out in shock as they tried to stop him. Grand Elder Miao swallowed the pill into his stomach as the hand which was placed on the rock wall clenched tightly. No matter, she's right. We're injured to this extent and we're either going to die. She doesn't need to drug us at this point in time. Second Elder Miao and Fourth Elder Miao were slightly stunned as they immediately lowered their eyes and looked at the strange colored pill in their palms. After some time, they made up their minds as they speedily swallowed the pill in their hand. At the same time, Yiqing Luo's slightly cold voice was transmitted into their ears. I saved you, not because you're worth saving, but I need you to help me protect Yi and bring her out of the tunnel. If you can't even do this, I will let you enjoy a punishment that is more painful than what you're doing now. Qing Luo. When Miao Yi heard that, she immediately expressed her attitude. I'm the one who dragged you into the Miao tribe's grudge, how could I possibly leave you behind? Just based on these few people, they can't hurt me. Yiqing Luo replied calmly as she glanced at Miao Yi from the corner of her eyes. You must leave, otherwise I have to divert my attention to protect you, it's too troublesome. Miao Yi was unable to explain this point. Right. Eldest young Miss Miao, even if you stay here, it's also making Miss Yi take care of you. Second Elder Miao abruptly stood up from the ground as his complexion was no longer as pale as before. The other two elders stood up as well. They looked at their own bodies in disbelief. He raised his hand and waved it left and right a few times. Apart from the faint pain in his internal organs, the wounds on his body were actually healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. They quickly understood Second Elder Miao's intentions. Fourth Elder Miao added, Young Lady Miao, please listen to Lady Yi. If Miao Rongrong uses you to threaten Miss Yi, we're all finished. Miao Yi's face darkened. She gritted her teeth and glared fiercely at the elders in front of her. He wanted to refute their words. However, he couldn't open his mouth no matter what. Miao Yi knew this very well. With her strength, apart from Gu techniques, there was nothing else she could use. As for Miao Rongrong and the 5 guards, the Gu technique was obviously useless. If she stayed here, she would only drag Yiqing Luo down. Let's go. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as her eyes were filled with smiles, appearing very calm. Miao Yi gritted her teeth and quickly retreated to Great Elder Miao's side. Trying to leave? Miao Rongrong cried out sharply. Once you enter this tunnel, none of you will be able to leave here alive. I will absolutely not allow anyone to stop me from ascending to the position of Sacred Maiden. Chapter 2864. Miao Rongrong knew that Yiqing Luo's favorite thing was to capture the ringleader first. She didn't dare to leave the protection of the guards. She only dared to send one guard to stop her. That guard received the order. With a stretch of his body, he had already turned into an afterimage as he charged forward. The guard's speed was very fast, but Yiqing Luo's speed was obviously faster. The guard's movement towards Miao Yi was obstructed and stopped. Yiqing Luo had no intention to tangle with the guard. She took out a dagger from the profound phoenix ring. The blade of the dagger shone with an extremely cold glint. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she raised the dagger and speedily stabbed towards the guard's arm. That dagger was deeply embedded into the guard's flesh. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes, as she carefully sized up the deep wound which she had made on his body. The flesh was bloody and the muscles and bones were distinct. But there was no blood. There was no blood oozing out from the huge wound on his arm. He also did not see the shadow of blood flowing in the wound that had been cut open. The flesh was red. It was indeed red. But there was no trace of blood at all. Qing Luo. Suddenly, Miao Yi's voice was heard from behind. Yiqing Luo retracted her thoughts as she turned her head back. She saw the three elders pulling Miao Yi's arm as they retreated towards the other side of the tunnel. Yiqing Luo was still entangled with the secluded palace's guards. How could Miao Yi possibly leave in peace? Just like that, she was dragged along by the three elders. Grand Elder Miao saw that there was no other way as she lowered her voice and warned, "If you continue to drag on, Miss Yi will be fighting for time for you to leave. Don't tell me you want to see Miss Yi waste her efforts?" Sure enough, this sentence made Miao Yi immediately stop struggling. Just before she left, looking at Yiqing Luo's slender and frail but filled with boundless energy, creating numerous legends, Miao Yi felt her eyes turning warm as she subconsciously called out Yiqing Luo's name. "I'll wait for you to come out. And I'll wait for you. Ant and the Overlord are waiting for you." Miao Yi's lips turned slightly white as she said each word in a hoarse voice, but it was extremely serious. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she nodded. Miao Yi took a deep breath, clenched her fists, and turned her head. It was as if he was afraid that he would not be able to resist the urge to stay. Miao Yi walked very quickly. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared at the corner of the tunnel. When the three elders saw that Miao Yi was finally willing to leave, they all heaved a sigh of relief and quickly prepared to follow. "Wait!" The girl's unique sweet voice was mixed with a hint of coldness. It caused the bodies of the three elders to stiffen. "Now, do you understand the situation?" Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly, as her sharp gaze looked at Grand Elder Miao. "Should you understand, who should you trust?" Great Elder Miao knew. Yiqing Luo was reminding him to place all his thoughts on Miao Yi. His expression changed slightly, and he glanced in Miao Rongrong's direction. To be honest, before this, his intention was indeed as what Miao Rongrong said. He only wanted to make use of Miao Rongrong, to investigate Miao Yi's real ability, to probe if Miao Yi was really qualified to become the Miao tribe's sacred maiden. But now, from the looks of Miao Rongrong and Secluded Palace's relationship, it was obvious that they were on good terms.